Pirate's Most Powerful Villain, Chapter 141-160. Chapter 0141 You Have Dreams. Qin chose to leave in a low-key manner. He is going to find a secluded place, become a Night King, and then go to the center of the island, defeat Hawkeye, and get the title of the world's largest swordsman. Now Hawkeye is young, only 31 years old, and his strength has not yet reached the peak. Even if the King of Knights is 3-star, it is completely true. Just walking all the way, they all walked out of the city, but the little tail has been following behind. Qin stopped on a bank, turned around and looked back, only to see the great swordsman Sakakitaro with a gloomy face, following him from a distance. Are you free? HMPH, return the sword to me. Sakakitaro's expression changed slightly. I don't accept that you and your comrade join forces for a sneak attack. Who cares if you accept it or not? Qin rolled his eyes. Robber, you don't deserve to have the dragon's blood and national light. This sword is the sword of justice and the sword of Arlong. In your hands, only the pearl will be dusted. Sakakitaro was very angry. What you said is interesting. Benlong is a pirate. Qin looked strange, shook his head and said, I used a sword to fight you before to avoid exposure. Now it doesn't matter. As soon as the voice fell, Qin started directly without warning. He stepped out one step, and the whole person shone with dazzling white light, and the next moment, the 100-meter giant suddenly appeared. Seeing this scene, Sakakitaro's eyes widened and he looked horrified. You really are a dragon. Dragon blood Guagong can only emit sword sounds when bathed in dragon blood. You talk too much. Qin stared with long eyes, and grabbed the opponent with one paw. Sakakitaro quickly retreated. He was going to find an opportunity to regain the sword, and then kill the opponent with the dragon's blood. However, his speed is far worse than that of Sea Dragon. That dragon claw, as if it could shatter space, actually gave him a sense of decadence that could not be avoided. The next moment, the entire field of vision was filled with black claws, and Sakakitaro was pinched tightly by Heilong's claws. Damn it! Sakakitaro struggled for a while, but found that he couldn't break free. The claws were like a cage, and it was difficult to move. The courage is good, but let's go to the sea and feed the fish with your body. Qin raised his other paw, flicked his fingers, and struck the man's forehead. Boom! Sakakitaro felt the world spinning, his entire head was slammed, and his armament hockey couldn't fully defend. Compared with the previous human form, this blow suddenly made him realize the difference in strength. However, it was too late, and he passed out. Qin was too lazy to look at him and threw it into the sea. If you die, it's because of your bad life, don't blame me. Whispering in a low voice, Qin changed his body from the sea dragon form back to the human form, and then released his perception. After confirming that no one was nearby, he immediately turned into the King of Knights. A burst of white light flickered, Qin appearance changed slightly, and at the same time, armor appeared on his body, and he wore a blue cloak to regenerate. Promise victory. Qin stretched out his palm, and suddenly the brilliance overflowed in his palm, and a holy sword condensed out. The Wind King's enchantment shrouded the sword body, making the sword invisible to the naked eye. Speaking of which, I haven't released the ultimate move yet, maybe I can use it later. Wearing the Sword of Oath Victory on his waist, Qin walked towards the center of the island. Kai. As he went deeper into the island, Qin encountered a lot of beasts in the woods. These beasts were far from being comparable to ordinary creatures. They possessed a certain amount of wisdom, and they had rough skin and thick flesh. They even knew how to attack them in a group. However, facing the King of Knights, they all turned into corpses. I was walking when suddenly there was movement in front of me. Qin raised his eyebrows, jumped to the branches of the big tree beside him, and stared at it. I saw an 8-legged spider, very ugly, being attacked by a group of falcons. The body of the falcon is several meters long, and its wingspan is more than 10 meters. There are nearly 100 in number. It is flying in the air, and it is constantly diving and attacking. The ugly spider spit out cobwebs one after another, trying to hunt around, but the cobwebs were not tough enough to stop a group of falcons. After several fights, the octagonal spider was covered in wounds and bloodstains. It looks familiar, where have you seen it? Qin Yang frowned, recalled for a while, and finally remembered, Unical. Who? Hearing the sound suddenly, the spider turned around suddenly, saw Qin Yang standing on the branch, and immediately shouted with joy, Lord Night King. Immediately, his expression changed slightly, hurry up and save me, Lord Night. These damned eagles are so annoying. Qin Yang didn't move, instead he said leisurely, why are you here? Lord Night King, Unical smiled bitterly, can you help me first? Subverting the alliance of the four emperors is already nearby. They will land on the island at any time. They want to deal with the red hair. To deal with redheads. Qin Yang was stunned for a while, then his eyes narrowed, and he flew up in a flash, facing the leader of the group of falcons. In midair, he slashed out with a sword, and suddenly, the wind was blessed, turned into an invisible slash, and charged straight up. The falcon leader was bigger, and seemed to sense danger. After all, he actually wanted to dodge. However, at this time, it was too late. Under Qin Yang's sneak attack, he immediately cut off one of the leader's wings with a sword, screaming, and the falcon fell from the sky. Seeing the leader's death, a large group of falcons not only did not become crazy, but fled quickly and made a burst of sharp chirping. Run, Unical said blankly. You are at the disadvantage of being illiterate. Young people, you need to read more. Qin Yang landed lightly and said calmly, this kind of falcon, the scientific name is sword eagle, this is a tribe. If you kill the boss, the younger brother will naturally run away. They just play tricks on you and slowly kill you, otherwise you just died. Qin Yang usually absorbs the knowledge of this world, and he knows a little bit. This kind of creature is wise, and has a strong sense of territory. Even flapping its wings, it can strike a slash. It doesn't matter if it is a single one, it will be more troublesome for a group. Thank you. Unical heaved a sigh of relief and slowly changed from spider form to human form. You said just now, subvert the alliance of the four emperors. Qin Yang asked in a leisurely manner. Yes, the alliance learned that Hawkeye invited the swordsman to fight, and several bosses of the alliance thought that the red hair would appear, and it was very likely to be a person, so prepare in advance in the vicinity. Once confirmed, it will be get on the island and do it. Unical said solemnly, there will soon be a firefight here, Lord Night King, you have to leave quickly, otherwise you will be involved. Go. How could Qin Yang leave? He still had to fight Hawkeye. However, when he thought that this group of alliances actually aimed at the red hair, he suddenly felt speechless. Although the red hair is the weaker of the four emperors, after all, the rise time is very short, and he was still a young man 10 years ago, but now, it is also the fourth emperor level. You guys have big dreams. Qin Yang was silent for a moment and could only say this. However, I came here to challenge Hawkeye. I advise you not to disturb the swordsmanship competition, otherwise I would not recommend destroying this alliance. Hearing this, Unical was dripping with cold sweat and quickly said, Lord King of Knights, you don't know much about the alliance. The four bosses of the alliance are all big pirates in the Sea of Megatron, maybe not as good as the four emperors, but that's also true. The next level powerhouse is stronger than the average four emperor pirates. Hearing this, Qin Yang raised his eyebrows and asked with interest, where are they? It's in the nearby waters. Is there a devil fruit on the boat? Qin Yang's eyes flashed, and Qin Yang was curious. 4.6. Seeing this, Unical suddenly had a bad premonition, and when he thought about his dreamy style, he suddenly felt a subtle mood. When a normal person hears the four big pirates, they must have run as far as they can, and as a result, the King of Knights wants to take advantage of the fire. These are a bunch of lunatics. It seems there is one. The ownership has not been decided yet. Very well, let them come quickly. Qin Yang immediately patted Unical on the shoulder and said with relief, I admire people who have dreams. Now, I'll kill Hawkeye first, and then wait for it. Hearing this, Unical suddenly wanted to cry without tears, and he couldn't help feeling sad about the future of the alliance. This is being targeted by Dream, even the four sovereigns dare to extort and extort, what else is there to dare? However, when he thought about it, he didn't have any feelings for the League. What about his love? Compared with this, he had to quickly report his dreamy thighs. Thinking of this, he immediately threw the Alliance mission aside and quickly chased after him. Lord King of Knights, wait for me. Chapter 0142 The Great Pirate appears. The center of the island of Three Fingers Island is a small lake, and in the center of the small lake is a bald mountain with a height of 100 meters. If you look down at it from a high altitude, it is easy to identify. It is the intersection of three fingers. The water of the small lake will flow into the sea and connect to the boundless ocean. At this moment, the deserted canyon seemed a bit lively. On the bald mountain in the center of the lake, Hawkeye sat cross-legged, and in front of him, several challengers had fallen. When Qin Yang found here, the swordsmanship contest had obviously already begun. Lord King of Knights, do you really want to challenge Hawkeye? Unical followed behind. There are a lot of people. No, there are not as many people as I imagined. Isn't this nonsense? Hawkeye chose this place to take advantage of the beasts on the island and slow down some people's footsteps. Of course, there are fewer people who can get here. Qin Yang glanced at it, and roughly estimated that there were only 30 or so people, including the few who had already been defeated. The redhead, still wearing his black cloak, stood far away. At this time, in the crowd, a shirtless man suddenly jumped from a height, and jumped to the top of the bald mountain. I'm coming, the man shouted loudly, pulled out two large knives from his waist, and slashed at Hawkeye, who was sitting cross-legged. Condensed 15, and quickly said, that is Zonic, who used the second sword style. If I remember correctly, this person is a pirate captain under the Kaido pirate group. Qin Yang was noncommittal and looked at it for a while. Above the bald mountain, Zonic fell with a knife, and his momentum was heavy, as if he wanted to split the entire bald mountain. But Hawkeye was not in a hurry. He didn't move his black knife, but pulled out a short dagger and blocked the opponent's attack lightly. Boom! The next moment, the impact force was transmitted directly to the bald mountain below through the eagle's eye, causing countless rubble in an instant. Qin Yang picked it up and said to himself, the terrain here is amazing, this hill has not collapsed. A small hill of only 100 meters, normally speaking, a confrontation of that level would easily collapse the mountain, and there is something peculiar about it. Shaking his head, Qin Yang didn't care about this. He watched the competition seriously. The man named Zanak was so-so. With a series of attacks, Hawkeye could not be forced to move his footsteps, but the advantage of the two swordsmanship allowed him to attack continuously, thus suppressing Hawkeye. However, this is just a look. Hawkeye has been defending, not counter-attacking at all, and seems to be studying the opponent's moves. After about 10 minutes of fighting, Hawkeye was finally forced to use the black knife, but he also figured out the opponent's habits, and he quickly defeated the enemy with one sword. Unfortunately, this person's strength is similar to Sakakitaro, and he is even weaker. He thinks too much to challenge Hawkeye. Qin Yang commented secretly, but did not rush to take action. After that, 4 or 5 more people challenged, and there was no rest time in between, obviously to suppress Hawkeye's physical strength. As a result, it was naturally Hawkeye's winning streak. So strong. Hawkeye is stronger than before. He defeated 10 people in a row, and they all seized the flaws and defeated the enemy with one move, and the physical exertion was not large. Those are all cannon fodder. Some of them are not even great swordsmen. The real masters haven't shot yet. Tisk tisk, those few people don't want to go off first, waiting for others to consume Hawkeye's physical strength for them. It's a boring plan. Before the fight, the momentum was weaker. It's nice to say, you're going to go. A group of people obviously knew each other and laughed at each other, but no one was in a hurry to shoot. Yang looked at the group of people from a distance, and shook his head suddenly. If you want to fight, hurry up, take it slow. He was too lazy to continue watching, and immediately turned to the person behind him and said, Unical, stay here, I'll go meet Eagle Eye for a while, and if the alliance comes, remember to notify me. After speaking, Yang took a step forward and jumped towards Bald Mountain. Wait, Unical opened his mouth and said helplessly, Lord King of Knights, what are you in a hurry for? I just wanted to say that the people from the alliance have arrived. It seemed that he noticed that someone was coming, and for a while, everyone's eyes were focused. Hawkeye glanced at the 10 defeated generals who fell to the ground, then looked at Yang who was flying over, his eyes narrowed slightly, and said, You are dressed like this. Dressed in armor, with a large cloak on his shoulders, blonde hair, and a long sword on his waist, he looks very different from the dress of ordinary swordsmen. Really, so you don't know me? Yang took off the holy sword from his waist and slowly drew it out. Halong informed me, let me come to you for a while, I am here. Hearing this, Hawkeye's pupils shrank, and he said in surprise, Dream King of Knights. Dream. Night King. This guy is one of the mysterious dream leaders. On the high canyon, a group of people looked shocked. I heard that Charlotte Cracker, one of the 4 generals of the Big Mom Pirates, was slashed in the right hand by this person. I didn't expect that the Dream Pirates would also come. Finally there is a good show to watch. Someone sneered. He wished that the person who ended up was stronger, forcing Hawkeye to be embarrassed, consuming more physical strength, and then it would be cheap to pick up. In fact, most of the people here have this kind of thinking, and it is very difficult to beat Hawkeye one-on-one with swordsmanship. What are you surprised? Even I can't beat it, so don't even think about challenging that sea dragon. Yang let out a low laugh, took out the Oath of Victory, and started abruptly. He stepped on, approaching Hawkeye, and then swept away with a sword. Swish! The blade came out of the body, and the invisible blade pointed directly at Hawkeye's head. This sword. Hawkeye suddenly felt the murderous aura approaching, his reaction was quick, and he subconsciously fought back with the black knife. Boom! The 2 long swords intersected, and in an instant, the 2 swords collided, making a dull loud noise, and the entire Bald Mountain shook. Sure enough, your sword is invisible to the naked eye. Hawkeye murmured in amazement. What kind of sword is this? There is no such sword among the 12 workers' supreme swords. It's called the Holy Sword. Yang grinned, his eyes playful, the Wind King's barrier. Suddenly, the Oath of Victory radiated a dazzling light, and a magic power stirred up, causing the surrounding strong wind to whistle. What? Hawkeye's heart was shocked, and he immediately felt the murderous intention appear. This kind of slash that is forcibly struck without swinging the blade, no one can predict in advance. He quickly retreated, and at the same time, the black knife slashed away with a sword, and the dark red slash was stimulated, turning into a giant dozens of meters, and swept towards Yang. Seeing this, Yang's eyes twitched. Hawkeye is dying, and he would rather be injured than to pay him back. The next moment, boom! The entire Bald Mountain suddenly shook violently, and the smoke and dust filled everything, shrouding everything. At the same time, a large ship slowly entered from the estuary and entered the lake. Ha 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 ha, it was a lot of fun. On the deck, 4 men of different shapes stood clasping their arms, one of them dressed in sackcloth with a proud demeanor. I am the White Emperor, Gloria, where is the red hair? He roared loudly, and the sound spread throughout the canyon. Seeing this person, someone immediately changed color and blurted out, it's the Alliance. How could they be here? This person has a bounty of 1 billion, one of the big pirates who dominate the sea. Chapter 0143 You dare to be king. 1 billion pirates. The bounty that can reach this amount is already very rare. Even in the New World, where there are more than 100 million pirates like dogs, 1 billion is a huge watershed. 300 million, 500 million, 1 billion, these are 3 grades, which represent the judgment of the threat level made by Marine headquarters to this person. 100 million, less than 300 million, it is only a general level, and it will be handled easily when encountered, and will not be specifically targeted. More than 300 million, under 500 million, this is already a considerable threat, and there will be special intelligence personnel to keep the news and trends. And more than 500 million, in the New World, it is generally the big pirates. Most of these people have power. If Marine wants to deal with it, he must use the combat power of Admiral. Generally, Admiral is dealing with pirates of this level. The next 1 billion is a level that the Admiral class may not be able to deal with. This kind of role is quite troublesome. If it is not necessary, Marine will not conflict with them. Only when fully prepared will they be destroyed by thunder. 1 billion suddenly appeared. Everyone's face was not very good. Of course, it was not because of fear, but the sword cut would probably be interrupted. White Emperor, Gloria, one of the 4 big men who subverted the alliance of the 4 emperors. Big guy, HMPH, a group of rats. There are 4 emperors in the New World, they dare not do anything in front of them, and they call themselves the 4 emperors, behind their backs, which is ridiculous. Shush, be quiet, it looks like they're here for the redhead, I don't want to cause trouble. Red hair, how could the 4 emperors be in such a place? Go to the Red Hair Sea area if you want to find them. The 2 people on Bald Mountain are still fighting. Everyone glanced at Bald Mountain, and at a glance, they couldn't help but look dumbfounded. On the platform on the top of the mountain, the smoke and dust dissipated, and both sides of the fight showed their bodies. Hawkeye looked a little embarrassed, his coat was torn, and even the right hand holding the black knife was still hanging, dripping blood. Tick-tock, blood flowed all over the place, obviously not lightly injured. On the other hand, Qin Yang's expression was calm, and he never saw the slightest wound. Impossible, how could you possibly escape? Hawkeye didn't care about his injury, he widened his eyes and stared at Qin Yang, it's impossible to hide at that distance. It was no longer a question of how fast he reacted, but he realized that he needed to hide, but his body was bound to be too late, not to mention him, even if it was Whitebeard. Qin Yang liberated the Wind King barrier, and Hawkeye could only choose to bear the blow at the least price, because he knew that it was too late to hide. At the same time, at that time, Eagle Eye decisively cut a slash, and returned to Qin Yang, reporting the same thought. However, at this moment, Qin Yang was safe and sound, nothing happened. Ha ha hey hey. Qin Yang laughed softly, you can't do it, it doesn't mean I can't do it. It's too arrogant, Hawkeye. Hearing this, Hawkeye's face was heavy, but he did not refute. He carefully recalled the previous scene, and then was convinced that the other party never escaped. At that moment, what happened? At that moment, what Qin Yang did was very simple. He first used the Wind King barrier to distort the light to block everyone's prying eyes, and at the same time, he used the diffuse smoke to make a hidden transformation. He turned into a shadow demon, let the slash pass through his body, and then quietly changed back to take advantage of the arrival of uninvited guests outside. In less than a second, the shadow demon appeared in the blink of an eye, and no one noticed it, not even the eagle eyes that were close at hand could see through. As expected of a dream, it seems that you still have unknown abilities. Hawkeye let out a sigh of relief, no matter the blood on his right arm, he clenched the black knife, full of fighting intent. Come on, let me see how strong you are. Is it on the same level as Heilong? With that said, he is about to fight back. Wait, didn't you notice? Qin Yang said softly, and at the same time turned his eyes to the lake below the Bald Mountain. His eyes stayed on the 4 men on the deck, uninvited guests. Following his gaze, Hawkeye was taken aback. White Emperor, Gloria, Sword Emperor, Ingrid, God, Meredith, Fist Emperor, Cathrog. Hawkeye murmured in a low voice, this is not Alliance 4, God. The 4 emperors of the Alliance. Qin Yang was stunned. It was the first time he had heard of such a title. There are 4 emperors in the New World, and the 4 big pirates formed an alliance. In order to subvert the four emperors, they called themselves the Four Emperors, in private. Hawkeye calmed down quickly. Is that so? Are you here for the red hair? King of Knights, it seems that the competition between us has been suspended. Is it strong? Qinyang raised his eyebrows and carefully looked at the four people on the deck. The White Emperor who spoke earlier, the man in sackcloth and linen, was in his 30s, his height was short, and he was not too burly. As for the other three people beside Beatty, one was wearing a sword, obviously the Sword Emperor, the other was very tall, probably nearly 6 meters tall, and the last one was holding the barbell on his own. Boxing Emperor. This is a bit interesting, Qinyang thought playfully. This boxing emperor is called Kazrog. Is he the captain of Unikal? His strength looks very good, his blood is like a dragon, he is a master of hockey, and he is a master of boxing. The King of Knights has a super intuitive sense, and he can sense the strength of the opponent in the dark. It can be said that any one of the four is much stronger than the Shichibukai of some kings, and can even compete with Admiral. Just thinking about it, the White Emperor continued to shout, "Redhead, don't hide, my observation hockey has sensed that you are nearby, you can't hide." The 6-meter-tall, solemn-looking god spoke up and said, "Four emperors with red hair, your fate is already doomed, or do you want me to force you out myself?" Saying that, the god clapped his hands together, clasped them in front of his chest, and then pulled them apart abruptly, as if he had opened his arms and embraced the sky. The next moment, a piece of paper cranes flew out, densely packed, covering the sky and the sun, the number of which exceeded 10,000. "Children, go find the redheads," God shouted. After that, a large group of densely packed paper cranes condensed together and turned into an origami giant sword, hanging in the air. Whoosh! Suddenly, the floating giant sword shot towards a cloaked man in the canyon. Seeing that the red hair was about to be forced to reveal his figure, suddenly, an invisible wind turned into a sword that lifted the sky, slashed from the air, and instantly crossed a distance of hundreds of meters, directly smashing the origami giant sword into pieces. Boom! The power of the wind was manic, and all the origami cranes turned into powder under the stirring of the wind. Who? God frowned, looked at Hawkeye suddenly, but then looked at Qinyang opposite Hawkeye. "It's you." Qinyang stood at a high place and looked down at the other party. He held a sword in one hand and pointed it at the four of them. "Just because you are also worthy of being an emperor. If our captain, Lord Qin, knows, he will shoot you all to death." With a light snort, Qinyang said indifferently, "I think you are ignorant and fearless, and now I immediately donate a devil fruit, and I will not report this matter." Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Where is this trouble? Only Unikal on the canyon burst into tears, and he knew that the dreamer would definitely play this game. These lunatics are starting to extort blackmail again. Chapter 0144-Noble Phantasm Liberation. Qinyang's reprimands immediately shocked everyone. This dreamy cadre, inexplicably, is in conflict with the four emperors of the alliance. Are these two forces enmity? The slightly short White Emperor heard the words, his face suddenly ugly, and said, "Who are you? Don't meddle in your business." Qinyang Isho looked at the four of them calmly. "You have to deal with the red hair, I can't control it, but you have committed the taboo of my dreams. Now I will give you a fruit as an apology, and I will not embarrass you." Arrogant. Ignorance. Suddenly, the Sword Emperor, who had never spoken, snorted coldly, grabbed the hilt of the sword with his right hand, and struck out a sword like lightning. This move is to draw the sword, the silver light flashes, the blade is unsheathed, and a silver slash strikes from the air. Seeing this, Qinyang was unmoved and stood there quietly, as if ignoring the attack. Seeing the slashing close and about to fall, a sigh sounded. Suddenly, from above the cliff of the canyon, a fierce momentum radiated out, covering the audience, and at the same time, a more powerful sword chi attacked, like a bird, chirping, shattering the Sword Emperor's slash in an instant, and then castrated unabated, fell straight to the 190th deck of the vessel. Red hair. The Sword Emperor's eyes narrowed, and he immediately raised his sword to resist, while his eyes swept over the canyon. I saw that at the edge, a man in a cloak slowly lifted his hat, revealing conspicuous red medium-length hair. Subvert the alliance of the four emperors. Your goal is me, there is no need to cause trouble. The red-haired tone was low, and his eyebrows were cold. I am right here, what is coming at me? Ha 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 ha, as expected of the four emperors. Beatty laughed. Murderous, do it. As soon as the words fell, the four of them acted in unison. The Quan Emperor took the lead, and the barbell in his hand suddenly threw out. He was so powerful that with a single throw, the barbell turned into a cannonball, and suddenly rushed towards the red hair. However, at this moment, a figure fell from the bald mountain. The four of them only felt that the King of Knights was already standing on the deck. It's none of my business who you deal with. Since you're not going to make amends, I'll have to take it myself. Holding the vow of victory, Qin Yang stood lightly on top of the boat sculpture, and said in his heart, Huan, scan. Scanning is over. Mysterious power is found, 60 meters away. Azimuth, straight ahead, _pung. ~show confirmed that there was a devil fruit on the ship. Qin Piang was instantly delighted. The devil fruit delivered to the door is not taken for nothing. They have to deal with the red hair. Qin Yang is too lazy to manage it, but if there is a devil fruit, it will be different. He is still 5 pieces away before he can raise the sea dragon to 5 stars. There is only 1 piece in front of him. Not taking it is not his style. Bastard, this kid is very arrogant. Meredith, you need to deal with him first. After killing him, deal with the red hair together. Baidi's face was ugly, and he said hatefully, the 3 of us, let's do it. As soon as the voice fell, his body broke into a ball with a puff and disappeared in an instant. Qin Yang raised his eyebrows and said inwardly, a capable person. Logia. While he was thinking and guessing, the other 2 also started working together. The Quan Emperor jumped up and took a step on the deck. With a bang, he turned into one shot and ran straight towards the red hair above the canyon. One sword, and the long sword in his hand dared to extend abruptly, inserting it directly into the canyon mountain, and then the blade shrank, pulling him away. This sword is interesting. Is it the sword that ate the fruit? Qin Yang looked surprised. No wonder he dared to be called the Four Emperors. He was somewhat level. However, before the Sword Emperor flew to the cliff, Hawkeye jumped down and intercepted it in the midair. Vice Admiral. To disturb my swordsmanship, you are too unruly. Eagle Eye. The Sword Emperor was annoyed. HMPH. Just right. Kill you first. You are number 1 in the world. It really doesn't live up to its name. Not to mention the sudden melee on both sides. On the deck, Qin Yang looked at the god in front of him. The god is nearly 6 meters tall, dressed in a long robe, like a clergyman, with a big face like a square pie, and his facial features are very delicate. I am the creator of God, boy, sign up. The man held a cross and prayed on his chest, his face full of mercy. Dream, King of Knights. Qin Yang chuckled lightly and said, where are you from? You dare to call God? The coffin board of the Lord can't hold it. Dream, HMPH, you bunch of hiding rats. This time we did bad things for us. The sin is unforgivable. I want to redeem you. God snorted coldly, naturally remembering the last grudge. They originally wanted to win over the dreamy captain, but the other party ruined their good deeds and rescued Charlotte's son, which was really unpleasant. This time, old and new hatred is counted together. As soon as God made a move, he didn't want to save the other party's life. Big Tiger. With a snap, he clasped his hands together, and with one slap, he quickly pulled away to both sides. The next moment, at the position where he slapped, a fierce tiger leapt out. This tiger was all snow white, and it was only the size of a thumb when it appeared, but the moment it was thrown, it swelled to a height of 10 meters, and it opened its mouth and bit Qin Yang, who was above the boat sculpture. Paper Tiger. Qin Yang's eyes narrowed, a person with the ability of paper fruit. Guessing like this, Qin Yang raised his sword high, held the sword in both hands, and the magic power of his whole body poured into the holy sword. The next moment, this golden light expanded, rose into the sky, and turned into a giant sword. The first liberation of the noble phantasm, the long-faced man, and your paper tiger, go see the real God. With a loud shout, Qin Yang's sword fell. The white tiger that flew over, facing the release of the holy sword, could not even block it for a moment, and it suddenly disappeared into nothingness. And this sword did not weaken in the slightest, as if it was punished by the heavens, slashing at God Meredith. The whole world seemed to be flooded with golden light, and Meridian stared with wide eyes, as if he had forgotten to dodge. "You bastard!" He roared horribly and hated in his heart. How could he make a big move when he met? It didn't give people time to prepare. Excalibur! The next moment, a loud shout sounded. The golden light devoured everything, stretching for hundreds of meters, swallowing the entire ship and the entrance of the entire lake. Boom! Chapter 0145 _ The same trick is useless. Then 1000 subscriptions, more than 200 automatically. My heart hurts. ORZ close black lens bracket. Boom! The golden light devoured everything, the white tiger, the god Meredith, the parts above the deck of the pirate ship, everything that blocked the golden light, were all turned into powder under this blow. Not only that, the golden light stretched for hundreds of meters, and the sea in front was divided into two, setting off a huge wave. Seeing this scene, the faces of the swordsmen above the canyon were shocked. One blow is so powerful. I'm afraid a mountain can be leveled in an instant. God was hit head-on at close range. It looks like he's dead, and there's not even scum left. Not necessarily. It is rumored that God Meredith looks simple and honest, but his heart is extremely treacherous. Maybe there is some way to save his life. It stands to reason that the strength of the two sides in the fight is not that big, and it is impossible to kill suddenly, but Qin Yang's shot is a big move. No one can react, and it is such a close distance. It is a miracle that he can escape. After a long time, the golden light dissipated. The superstructure of the big ship has disappeared, and God Meredith is missing. The divided sea in front of him took a long time to gradually fill in the gully. It's similar to the tailed beast cannon. It consumes a lot of power and is powerful. It belongs to the ultimate skill. Qin Yang shook his head regretfully. However, the star rating is not enough. How can the real power be so much? This is not the oath victory of Arturia, but the liberation of the old sword Arthur Pandoragon's noble phantasm. The level is X, and the state of full power must be much stronger than the current performance. Of course, Qin Yang still needs to upgrade the star rating of Sea Dragon and King of Knights, and then he will consider it later. Thinking of this, Qin Yang retracted his sword and walked towards the center of the big boat. The buildings above the deck are gone, but the lower deck is still there. Qin Yang jumped from the hole on the deck and finally found a treasure chest in the captain's room. The treasure chest is exquisite. After opening, you can see a strange devil fruit. The fruit is in the shape of an apple, and the surface is covered with spiral patterns, exuding a mysterious atmosphere. Get another one. Qin Yang, Vivi Isho, was about to close the box and take away the fruit. But at this moment, on a whim, and warning signs in his heart, Qin Yang snorted lightly, suddenly drew out his holy sword, and stabbed it in reverse. When a crisp sound of swords colliding sounded, I saw that God Meredith appeared again. Not only that, but he also held a sharp white paper sword in his hand, and he wanted to sneak attack. What a strong perception. I have suppressed my breath to the lowest level, and I can still find it. He looked ugly and stared at Qin Yang. Taking advantage of his height and size, he wanted to kill with a paper sword, but found that his strength was not comparable to the opponent's, and he was forced back instead. Do you think I don't know you're not dead? Qin Yang's face was calm, and he put away the fruit first, and then said slowly, it must be your paper clone just now. Do you think I will hit it 3 times with the same move? The avatar skills of devil fruit power users are rare, but Qin Yang has encountered them twice. This is the 3rd time. The first time was beating Doflamingo. He has a line clone that is almost indistinguishable from the main body. The second time was the director of the deep-sea prison, Zone Mythical Zhu Juin. After he was killed, he realized that it was a shedding clone, which was more terrifying than a line clone. A clone in the true sense had strong combat effectiveness. This time, when he met a person with the ability to play with paper, Qin immediately thought of the paper clone. Even if there was no super-intuitive warning just now, he has been guarding against the opponent's sneak attack. But after hearing his words, God suddenly laughed. I see, no wonder I didn't deceive you, I have encountered similar abilities before. However, it doesn't matter, you still have to die. He suddenly threw the paper sword in his hand towards Qin, and at the same time, he shouted loudly, and his whole body turned into a piece of white paper, fluttering, and quickly separated from the hull. Let you try the power of awakening. Swallow him, the gate of hell. As soon as the voice fell, the entire hull shook violently. The next moment, the ship turned into a huge white mouth, and Qin was right in the huge mouth. The huge hole on the previous deck was enough at this moment, and it was quickly closed. The moment it was closed, Qin was surprised to find that a white paper sword appeared from the surrounding hull. Awakened Paramesha a little troublesome. Qin was very calm, his eyes narrowed, and in an instant, a strong wind barrier appeared all over his body. Wind King Barrier. The next moment, hundreds of paper swords pierced from all directions, as if to turn Qin into a hornet's nest. However, all these attacks were blocked by the wind and even smashed the moment they touched the Wind King's enchantment. The Wind King barrier can even distort the light, not to mention the attacks of some paper swords. These paper swords are hard at most, they can kill ordinary people, but it is not enough to be afraid of against the King of Knights. At the same time, above the ship, a large piece of paper made by God suddenly folded and turned into a big bird of paper, flapping its wings and laughing at this scene. In the Gate of Hell, there are 12 execution methods. How many rounds can you resist? Big Paper Bird laughed wildly. The hardness of this thing is 1 degree comparable to that of steel. If you want to destroy it and escape, just do. Quote. The dream word has not yet fallen, and suddenly, the sword chi is reckless, and the entire hull is chopped into countless pieces in an instant, turning into pieces that fill the sky. What? God's eyes widened and he saw Qin who broke through the door. Damn it. Qian Jihei. He roared, and the countless rocks around him turned into pieces of white paper, which automatically folded into paper cranes. These paper cranes locked onto Qin and swooped in, like a rain of arrows, covering a large area. But this didn't end. God Meredith suddenly looked at Bald Mountain on the side, his eyes narrowed, and he called out again, Giant Soldier. Ka ka ka. The 100-meter bald mountain shook suddenly, and countless gravel fell from the top of the mountain, but it itself was covered with a layer of white armor, and at the same time turned into a 100-meter giant, punching the hull. Have fun. Qin raised his eyebrows and jumped to his feet. He was so light that he stepped on a paper crane and dashed towards the paper crane hovering high in the sky. The main body is hiding so far, afraid that I will kill you. If you can break a few toys, you will really think that you are the creator. Ridiculous. During the speech, Qin had already bullied him and stabbed the opponent with a sword. What a great speed. The paper bird turned pale in horror, and the dense attacks of thousands of paper cranes could not hit the opponent. Even if there were occasional attacks close by, they were smashed by some kind of enchantment force around the opponent. Go to the Lord. Puff. The Holy Sword, a sword pierced through the big bird of paper. Chapter 0146 _ The Only Emperor. The captain has to wait a while, the sea dragon has 5 stars, and the captain will naturally appear. Hollow square. By the way, ask for automatic daily tilde. Puff. The sword of the oath of victory pierced through the big bird of paper. Seeing this scene, above the canyon, the Fist Emperor was stunned and shouted, Meridian. Do you still have time to care about others? You don't care about me too much. The redhead smiled, and suddenly approaching the opponent, he held a straight sword, and while the opponent was distracted, he struck straight with the sword. Cloud palm. Suddenly, a loud shout came, and above the sky, a big white cloud hand suddenly appeared, hitting the red hair directly, as if to suppress it with a palm. Boom! This big white cloud swallowed the red hair directly, and the canyon shook with one blow. In midair, Baidi's lower body turned into a white cloud, and his upper body pressed out with a palm. He shouted at the same time, "Deal with the red hair first. It's already too hard to fight 2 and 1, don't be distracted." Hearing this, the boxer nodded with a solemn expression on his face. 2 on 1 is very disgraceful, but the opponent is the 4 emperors. More than reluctance, there is no way to take the other side. According to their expectations, 4 on 1 will have a chance to kill the red hair, and the worst, it will take 3 people together, we can completely compete. As a result, a king of knights appeared here. Hawkeye will help, which is still expected, but the existence of the king of knights has seriously affected their plans. At this time, Qinyang raised his eyebrows and Vivi raised his eyebrows. He stabbed the big white bird with his sword, but he didn't see the other party bleeding and injured. Isn't Paramesha afraid of slashing? He thought to himself, but after a blow, the inertia disappeared at this moment, and he fell downward. There was also a big white paper bird that fell together. But at this moment, above the sea, white clouds rose up, covering the entire lake in an instant. Qinyang landed lightly on the white clouds, and couldn't help but glance at the White Emperor in the direction of the canyon. This man was fighting with the red hair, and you helped God. As a capable person, falling into the sea is basically a waste of half. How could Emperor Bai watch the big white paper bird fall into the water? I got hit with a sword, no blood, but some kind of trauma. Thinking like this, Qinyang walked towards the big white paper bird, ready to make a knife. At this time, the giant soldier on the side suddenly moved, and it punched in the direction of Qinyang. As a giant soldier transformed into a mountain, the surface is covered with white paper armor, and it is punched like a meteorite. Qinyang's footsteps stopped, and he quickly dodged behind him. The next moment, boom! The giant soldier punched above the sea of clouds, and the entire sea of clouds was shocked, but it was only a shock, and it was not penetrated. Oh. This cloud has a good defense. Qinyang thought in his heart, is Emperor Bai a person with the ability of Qi Yun fruit? Air cloud fruit, Logia, this fruit, he saw on the fruit map of Doflamingo. Destroy him, giant soldier. Suddenly, God's voice sounded. I saw the big white paper bird that had fallen earlier, but it has recovered at this time. Where it was pierced by a sword, the breach has been repaired as before. Sure enough, I'm not afraid of slashing. No, to be precise, it can be recovered even after being beheaded. Qinyang chuckled, no wonder you came to stop me. While talking, the giant soldier moved again, it pulled back the punch that hit the sea of clouds, and in one leap, it swept up high and jumped towards Qinyang's head. This thing is 100 meters tall, and it is transformed by the mountain. Although it has become white paper, its weight has not changed at all. Roar! With a loud roar, the giant soldier was full of momentum, and with a kick that covered the sky, he stomped down. It's a lot of power, but unfortunately it's not fast. Qinyang shook his head, moved, and avoided it again. If the sea dragon transforms, he will kill this kind of thing with one claws, but when the King of Knights transforms, he still can't support such a behemoth. At the same time at the back, he raised his sword, and the sword energy was stimulated, and in an instant, a slash flew out. Swish! With a flash of golden light, a big foot of the giant soldier was directly cut off and thrown high. It's so big and its defense is not good, it's not worth it. Qinyang pouted, his toes touched the ground, and the next second, he jumped up. Stepping on the broken leg in midair to borrow strength, the whole person turned into a light and shadow, and suddenly flew to the altitude above 100 meters. Seeing this, the giant soldier suddenly stretched out his hands, opened his palms, and grabbed towards Qinyang. It is a dead thing, but it is transformed by the power of God, like a puppet, and manipulated. Injured and broken legs, for it, is not a problem at all. Crush it. Qin Yang's eyes flashed, and he swung his sword down without hesitation. Whoosh! A huge sword energy shot out, turned into a crescent moon, and fell from the sky. In an instant, the sword energy penetrated the giant soldier, starting from its head, splitting it in two. Boom boom boom. The body was destroyed and the ability was lost. The giant soldier was petrified at first, then turned back into the mountain, and then collapsed, becoming a rubble that fell from the sky. Above the sea of clouds below, God watched with palpitations. Although he has always been cautious, did not show all his strength, and did most of it as a test, but the Night King's display of strength still shocked him. Damn, there is no one who can deal with the dream cadres. According to the rumors, the sea dragon of the 4th Emperor level is not a problem. This little-known guy is actually so strong. Thinking of this, he immediately turned from a big bird into a human form. Night King, I know who it is. God said in a deep voice, we are just here to deal with the redheads, there is no need for you to intervene. Qin Yang floated to the ground and looked at each other with his sword. Seeing this, God felt amused, and then said, you just want the devil fruit, and anything that has violated your Qin Emperor's taboo is just an excuse. Now that the fruit has been taken away by you, it is regarded as a gift to you. We are here. How has it been so far? Hearing this, Qin Yang Isho said, are you afraid? You guys are so cowardly, you have to deal with the 4 emperors, and you are still so timid. God's complexion changed, his eyes flashed with murderous intent, and he said after a moment, it's just that there is no need to make extra efforts. There is no conflict between us. If you get what you want, why not just watch the show quietly? HMPH, let you hold the fruit first, and then deal with you after the redhead is killed. God thought fiercely in his heart, 0.5 is not really afraid of the King of Knights, but the fight is endless, and it will not be resolved in a while, and the red hair over there may escape. Although the surrounding area has been blocked by their alliance, the red hair really wants to escape. It is estimated that the White Emperor and the Fist Emperor alone may not be able to stop him. Ha 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 ha. Qin Yang laughed twice, his eyes turned cold, and said, who said it was an excuse? You dare to call yourself an emperor, that's a taboo of our dreams. Do you think the 4 of you can have a relationship with our captain, Emperor Qin? Comparable. He figured it out early in the morning, when the main body will appear as the captain, not the title of the 4 emperors, it will be called the Qin Emperor, and 4 inexplicable 4 emperors will appear. What? When someone mentions it, oh, there are 4 emperors, so what is Emperor Qin? Stop talking nonsense. The emperor is the only one. You guys, go see God. Chapter 0147, God, really went to see God. The only emperor, the 4 of you, let's go see the real God. Qin Yang snorted coldly, and when he moved, he raised his sword and approached the opponent. The Wind King barrier can erase air resistance, so the speed of the King of Knights is not unpleasant. God only felt that there was a flash of light and shadow in front of him, and Qin Yang had already come to him, vowing victory in his hand, and mercilessly slashed his head with a sword. Damn dream, you pissed me off. God was furious. He was nearly 6 meters tall, and his body was several times that of Qin Yang. At this moment, facing the attack, he did not retreat but advanced, and took the initiative to meet him. At the same time, he held both hands in the air, and a white paper sword suddenly appeared out of thin air. He held the sword in both hands, and the sword fell. Boom! The 2 swords collided, causing a shock in the space. Night King, do you think I'm afraid of you? God's eyes were cold, and his killing intent was undisguised. I am a paper fruit person, not Logia, but better than Logia. Your slash is useless to me at all. Quote. The Super 15 people, there are some special fruits, such as rubber fruits are not afraid of blows, split fruits are not afraid of slashes and so on. The paper man is not afraid of slashing, of course, it is not really ignoring the slashing, but the position of the beheading can be divided in advance to avoid ordinary attacks. Just like just now, Qin Yang pierced through a big bird with a sword, because he responded in advance, but Qin Yang moved too quickly and he did not completely escape, so he suffered a certain trauma and needed to be repaired afterwards. After the repair, immediately returned to human form. In this regard, Qin Yang's eyes were calm and he said, "If you are really not afraid of slashing, do you need to explain it to me? You are afraid." During the speech, Qin Yang suddenly exerted his strength, and the holy sword shone with golden light, like a brilliance of 10,000 feet. What? VV's expression changed, and he immediately noticed that the pressure from the holy sword suddenly soared, as if countless blades were pressing against his heart, and it would kill him at any time. Aware of the danger, God Meredith immediately retreated to distance himself, and at the same time, with a wave of his hand, countless paper cranes flew out. Each of these paper cranes seems to be conscious, will automatically lock on the target, and launch a suicide attack. Have you lost all your skills? The golden light of the Oath of Victory is condensed but not issued, the whole holy sword is golden light, and the lethality is doubled. I saw it swept out, and a golden light curtain was instantly cast. Under this blow, all the paper cranes turned into powder and disappeared. Seeing this scene, God was shocked and blurted out, "This is the move just now." Oh! The previous burr, his paper clone was wiped out with a single blow, and even the sea could chop off a piece of seawater that directly evaporated a huge amount of water. Suffer it. Your ability is a bit interesting, but unfortunately your own fighting technique is completely incompetent, Yu Kai. Qin Yang jumped up and suddenly came to the top of God's head. The holy sword was raised high and suddenly swung down. God gritted his teeth. This golden holy sword is definitely not a physical attack, not a simple slash. If it is hit, I am afraid it will really die. He used that move, but he didn't make it, so every attack has a special power. This power comes from the golden light, which can destroy everything, no matter whether you are a paper man or a split man. If you hit it, you will still be finished. Immediately, God did not dare to care for him, and immediately retreated. I am the creator. You want to kill me, dreaming. He roared and threw the big paper sword in his hand. As soon as the paper sword broke away from his palm, it immediately changed its shape, from a dead long sword to a giant pale claws. The claws were extremely sharp and wide open, as if to trap Qin Yang inside. Heaven's claw. Puff. Before the claws got close, Qin Yang then swept a sword, and with a flash of golden light, it instantly destroyed it. Impossible, this is as hard as steel. There is also armament reinforcement on it. God's pupils shrank, and his color suddenly changed. Only then did he realize that at this moment, every blow of the golden light holy sword has the same destructive power as the ultimate move. The three-headed dog of hell. God's spear. Heaven's gate. With 3 attacks in a row, God quickly retreated, not daring to let Qin Yang get close again. I saw under the sea of clouds, a white gate rises from the ground. The gate is 30 meters high, and there are 2 angel children on the gate, majestic, as if blocking all evil things. The door opened, and suddenly, a giant white dog rushed out. The 3 big white dogs opened their huge mouths one by one, revealing their sharp fangs. After that, a white light flashed, and a silver-white spear shot out from the door. It traveled a distance of several tens of meters in an instant and hit Qin Yang in midair. Tips for carving bugs. Qin Yang was not afraid, but the spear of the gods came, but was blocked by the holy sword. There was no stalemate for half a second at all. The spear started from the head, and any part that touched the golden light was immediately erased and evaporated from the world. Immediately afterwards, without waiting for the 3-headed dog to roar and bite, Qin Yang fell to the ground, and with the help of the sea of clouds, the whole person catapulted out in an instant. Whoosh! It was like a vertical golden light that pierced the white dog in an instant. This 3-headed dog was just roaring at the sky, but it was suddenly pierced through the body, and it was torn apart at once. Monster! God's face twisted, he felt the great terror approaching, and immediately roared, close the door. Boom! The gate of heaven closed suddenly, like a great wall, standing above the sea of clouds, defending it. Only this gate of creation, you are the absolute hit of 887. Before his courageous words were finished, Qin Huang shone brightly, and suddenly, the gate of heaven exploded, and a large mouth was punched open. And inside the breach, a beam of golden light shines. Puff! The next moment, God's eyes widened, full of disbelief. He kept a stance. Vivi lowered his eyes and saw Qin Yang, who was close at hand, as well as the golden holy sword held in the opponent's hand, which had pierced his chest. You! God stretched out his hand tremblingly, wanting to fight back, but he was completely powerless, and his mouth was full of blood with a wow. It depends too much on the ability of the fruit. At your level, never think about reaching the 4th Emperor level. Qin Yang stepped on the opponent's chest, jumped back, and drew out the holy sword in his chest. A sword was drawn, and immediately a stream of scorching blood came out. It's barely an admiral-level combat power, but, it's barely, the current 3 admiral, I guess you can't beat any of them. Throwing a knife, Qin Yang threw off the blood on the blade, and then slowly returned to the sheath. Relying on the fruit ability, never think about reaching the 4th Emperor level. The reason why Whitebeard is not because he ate the shock fruit, but because the person who ate the shock fruit is Whitebeard. Go to God, God. Chapter 0148_Even the bereaved dog dares to bark. Meridian. The Sword Emperor was fighting Eagle Eye, who was the closest to Qin Yang. At this moment, he was horrified when he saw that God was assassinated by a sword. Meredith's title of God was acquired by them internally, and was generally called Creator by the outside world. He was the captain of the Holy Cult Pirates, with a bounty of 895 million, the big pirate who dominated one sea area. However, such a big pirate comparable to the Admiral class died unexpectedly. Even if Marine sent Admiral, the big pirate who couldn't easily kill it died in such a place. This shocking scene suddenly caused the whole audience to fall into a silence. No, impossible. God has been killed. This time it's really dead. The corpses are still there. It can't be fake. It's terrible. The fight was too fast, and I didn't understand what happened. Are all dream leaders so strong? Sea Dragon, Nine-Tailed Demon Fox, the current King of Knights. Above the canyon, a group of swordsmen watching the battle were shocked. In the 3 battles that broke out at that time, most people were concerned about the 4 emperors and Red Hair fighting 1 against 2. When they came back to their senses, they saw that the King of Knights had killed God, so everyone felt incredible. On the other side of the canyon, the Red Hair suddenly stopped moving, looked at the sea of clouds below, and suddenly smiled. One of your combat power died, wrongly estimating the strength of the Dream Cadre level. He has seen Sea Dragon face to face, and he has an estimate of Sea Dragon's strength, which is a real 4 Emperor level. Since this Night King is also a cadre, even if he is inferior to Sea Dragon, the gap will not be too far. In mid-air, Bai Di Gloria looked shocked, and looked at Yun Hai's corpse below in disbelief. What is this idiot doing? Boxer Cathrog was as sluggish as he was, and after a long while he said in a deep voice, "Is he stupid? Paper people have the characteristics of ignoring slashes. How did they get killed? The situation is not good." The 3 emperors were a little confused. It was not the same as expected. The plan was not like this. Let Meridian deal with the King of Knights, that is to see that the King of Knights uses a sword. God, as a paper man, can ignore the slash, and even if he can't win, he can't be killed. However, the result is still dead, which simply subverts common sense. What should I do? Fist Emperor asked with a solemn expression as he looked at Emperor Bai. Bai Di's face was cloudy and uncertain, and he glanced at the King of Knights viciously, and then he reached out and grabbed the Fist Emperor's shoulder, and lifted him up. Go, once God dies, we have no chance to kill the Red Hair. Now it's not a question of whether you can kill the Redhead, but if you run away from the opponent's counterattack. Flying Clouds. With a light drink, Baidi suddenly condensed a wide white cloud from his lower body, and he himself emerged from the flying cloud a little bit. The boxing emperor took the opportunity to jump above the flying clouds, then looked at the sword emperor and said, "Withdraw." As soon as he finished speaking, Emperor Bai suddenly stretched out his hands towards Yunhai. Flying cloud chains. Woohoo! The white chi surged and formed two long chains, one encircled the sword emperor's waist, and the other bound God's corpse, and then pulled together, dragging one person and one corpse onto Feiyan. Huh! Qinyang had just put away the holy sword when he saw this group of people were about to escape, and immediately wanted to intercept them. "I let you guys run away so easily, what am I doing?" He stepped forward and jumped out suddenly, and at the same time, a golden light flashed and a sword swept across. Not only him, but Hawkeye also struck a blow at the same time. In an instant, two sword lights, one black and one gold, shot out, attacking Feiyan in the sky from the left and right. "Humph!" Baidi snorted coldly and said, "Don't be complacent. This time you were amazing, Redhead, I hope you will have such good luck next time." As he was talking, the boxing emperor on the side walked up to the two of them, his eyes narrowed, and he suddenly punched in the air while shouting loudly. "Dragon Fist!" Boom! The punch from the air directly shook the air, like an illusory dragon. In the roar of the wind, it collided with two slashes, causing a huge explosion. With a loud bang, the three moves annihilated each other. Huh! Qinyang raised his eyebrows in surprise. This is a fighting technique expert, is it boxing? Being able to punch through the air, and even block the slashes of him and Hawkeye, is somewhat of a strength. Just like the sword master called Jian Hao, he can stimulate the sword energy from the air, and the powerful fighting technique expert, such as Garp, can also use the fist to attack from the air. I just didn't expect that the captain of Unical had such strength. This is still a bit like, much stronger than God. He thought to himself, but was not ready to let the other party evacuate. Although there is no injustice and no hatred, but who asked them to take an imperial title? This is a title reserved for the main body. Thinking like this, Qinyang immediately wanted to use the noble phantasm to liberate and leave them behind. At this moment, Baidi's eyes swept over and said coldly, "Dream. We remember this account." He glanced at him angrily, and slapped a palm. Boom! Immediately, white clouds covered the sky and blocked the sun, turning into a huge palm of hundreds of meters, falling from the sky, and photographed it directly at Qinyang. This palm is so powerful that it seems to collapse the entire canyon. A group of swordsmen above the canyon looked terrified, and each of these people was outrageously strong. He he he. Suddenly, the holy sword in Qinyang's hand shone with golden light, and he said with a low smile, "Does a bereaved dog dare to bark? Go and lick the wound." As soon as the voice fell, the holy sword was released, and a golden light rushed away, instantly piercing the big hand that covered the sky. Excalibur. Boom! The golden light rages and destroys everything. Even in the sea several nautical miles away, you can clearly see the golden light rising from the sky. Nothing can stop it. The big hand that covered the sky was pierced by a single blow, and then the golden light devoured the three emperors above the flying clouds. Bastard! In the sound of rage, the big hand that covered the sky collapsed and turned into a diffuse white gas cloud, covering the entire canyon. After a long time, everything gradually dissipated. Qinyang didn't see any corpses, so he couldn't help shaking his head. I actually ran away. How did I run away? However, it doesn't matter, I have an undercover anyway, and then I will become a sea dragon and take over their nest. Thinking like this, he looked sideways at Unical above the canyon, showing a kind smile. Seeing this smile, everyone, including Unical, shuddered. Fantastic monster. A few nautical miles away in the sky above 1,000 meters, a spherical white cloud slowly drifted. At this time, the top half of the white ball melted, revealing the three people inside and one corpse. Puff! Baidi spat out blood, his right arm was shattered, and his skin burned. If it wasn't for Hockey's body protection, I'm afraid his entire hand would have been wiped away by that golden light. Damn it, that kind of move can be used multiple times. The Fist Emperor and the Sword Emperor on the side were equally uncomfortable. The plan to kill the 4 emperors was disturbed by that person. It's really hateful. God is dead, what about this? Boxer asked. HMPH, first prepare to draw a new force into the alliance. Meredith, an idiot, can be killed one-on-one. Baidi looked ugly, glanced at the corpse, and said, however, his corpse is still useful. It's just a pity for the fruit that was robbed. Sooner or later, I will settle accounts with them. He was filled with resentment. Just because the dream captain is called Emperor Qin, others are not allowed to use the word Emperor. Emperor Qin, he roared through gritted teeth. Chapter 0149_regular fruit. The third update, rolling all over the ground and asking for automatic ORZ, asking for automatic, dynamic. Three-Finger Island, Central Lake. As Emperor Bai and others fled, the sea of clouds floating on the lake quickly disappeared, and everything returned to its original state. Only the 100-meter bald mountain that disappeared told the story of a previous battle. You didn't leave them behind. Hawkeye stepped on a piece of floating debris and looked up at the red hair above the canyon. Hearing this, the red-haired laughed and said, I think so too, but they want to run away, and I can't keep it alone. Especially that white emperor, his escape skills are top-notch. Hearing this, Qin Yang nodded. He liberated the noble phantasm just now, and indeed attacked the 3 of them, but they escaped miraculously. There should be some means. However, none of these matters. When the time comes, he will transform into a sea dragon and go to Duan Lao's nest, and let them go to the sky and the sea, and they will not be able to escape. Just as he was thinking about it, Hawkeye turned his gaze over and said, Night King, no one has disturbed us, let's continue. No, forget it, next time. Qin Yang shook his head, his interest was greatly diminished. He had just finished the fight, and it took a lot of effort to kill God. Now it consumes a lot of money, and then it is too unwise to discuss with Hawkeye. Moreover, I got another devil fruit. There are now 8 of them, and there are only 4 missing to upgrade the sea dragon. It is more important to continue to collect devil fruits than to defeat 877 Hawkeye to get the title of number 1 in the world. Thinking of this, Qin Yang jumped up a few times and went straight to the canyon. Then he turned to look at Hawkeye and said, wait until you become stronger, and fight again. Okay. Hawkeye's eyes flashed and he nodded. He also felt that the King of Knights was not weak, and it might not be easy to defeat the opponent. Shaking his head, Qin Yang didn't pay attention to what was going on here, and walked away directly. Seeing this, Unical gritted his teeth and followed quietly while everyone was not paying attention. Not to mention whether the swordsmanship competition can go on. On the other side, Qin Yang walked towards the port. His steps were slow, as if waiting for something. Sure enough, it didn't take long for Unical to catch up. Lord King of Knights. He took a breath and said, you killed God Meredith, be careful of revenge from the Alliance. With a chuckle, Qin Yang glanced at him, shook his head and said, I wish they would come to me on their own initiative. Hee. Unical laughed dryly and said again, Meridian is the captain of the Holy Cult Pirates, and some of his officers are very strong. You may not be afraid, but you should be careful, there are some people who are very capable. Weird. Oh, Qin Yang raised his eyebrows. The guy in front of him wouldn't be unaware of his strength. Under this premise, he was told to be careful, which was a bit interesting. What ability? Paramesha is the fruit of bad luck. Anyone who is touched will encounter bad luck. Maybe while walking on the road, a meteorite will fall and kill people, Unical said solemnly. There used to be a New World pirates, that's all. Those who were destroyed by him encountered a small meteorite at sea and directly destroyed the ship. Quote. Qin Yang couldn't help but be a little surprised. It was the first time he heard about the fruit of luck. He knew something about the fruit of luck. If I remember correctly, one of, going emperor, subordinates is the one who has the ability to get the fruit of luck and can absorb the luck of others. Wait, going Emperor, Guild Tessero, haven't eaten the golden fruit yet. Qinyang suddenly thought of a question. According to the information he knew, the golden fruit was auctioned off by Doflamingo, but it was robbed by Emperor Going. The time happened to be 1510, which is this year. Jinjin fruit is a good thing. Qinyang's eyes lit up, and he suddenly had an idea. Emperor Going ate the golden fruit, and in 12 years, he could even indirectly control 20% of the world's circulating money, directly affecting the world economy. The world economy collapsed. Look for a chance to ask Doflamingo. If the golden fruit is found, I have to keep it first and find someone I trust to eat it, and then there will be a steady stream of going. As for who to eat, this question has to be carefully considered. Anyway, he would never eat it himself, so he didn't want to give himself a weakness. Unical, who was beside him, saw him in a trance, so he couldn't help but whisper, and said, Lord King of Knights, you must be careful. Many Paramesha fruits directly affect the rules of the world. It's not just a matter of strength. If you don't pay attention, we'll suffer. Quote. Well, I know, thanks for the reminder. Seeing his good intentions, Qinyang nodded and said, Unical, you can stay in the alliance. After that, I will contact you and tell me the positions of the other 3 emperors. Seeing this, Unical shuddered, dreaming that he was going to kill them all. Speaking of which, although he has no feelings for the alliance, his own captain, Fist Emperor, treats him quite well. It seems that he will have to ask for mercy for the captain at that time, although he does not feel that he has the ability to influence the dreamer. Thinking of this, Unical nodded quickly, yes, I see. Now that the alliance has retreated, I have to leave too, so as not to be suspected. Go ahead. Without further ado, Unical immediately evacuated. Watching him walk away, Qinyang squeezed his chin and whispered to himself, the fruit of bad luck should be a special kind of fruit in Paramesha. Rule. Are 3 types of devil fruits. It seems that Logia is the most powerful, and it is indeed strong, but some fruits in Paramesha are also very strange. Example, the gravity fruit, which directly affects the gravitational force, ignores the rules, and the future Admiral Fujitora can even directly attract extraterrestrial meteors to smash down against the enemy. Another example is the fruit of luck, absorbing the luck of others, and making the capable person become a god. A little deeper, cause and effect, slowness, immortality, soul, time, space, and so on. Among them, the person with the ability of soul fruit is the 4 emperors' Big Mom. It seems that we need to pay more attention in the future. If you get some special fruits, such as golden gold, secret, cause and effect, and time, you have to keep it. Qinyang thought about it for a while, and then suddenly Isha walked towards the port. Not long after, he came to an uninhabited shore, immediately jumped down, dived into the sea, and then transformed into a 100-meter dragon. Go to Cake Island first. Under the sea, Qinyang's eyes flashed, and he secretly said, I hope there will be more than 4 fruits at Big Mom, so that I can save me from running around. After confirming the direction a little, Qinyang quickly walked towards Cake Island. A week later, he entered the Big Mom waters and stopped near Cake Island. Qinyang was not in a hurry to hit the door. Even if the sea dragon was 4-star, he would have to kneel. Even if the opponent couldn't kill him, his goal would be difficult to achieve. First become a shadow demon, sneak into the Cake Island, find the devil fruit, if there are more than 4, then directly upgrade it. Qinyang grinned, making plans in his heart. A 4-star sea dragon can't beat an entire 4 emperor pirates, what about 5 stars? Chapter 0150_dive into Cake Island. The first update, ask for automatic mouth and teeth ~O, hollow square O. First transform into a shadow demon, sneak into the Cake Island, and find out if there is a devil fruit. At this time, it was night time, and it was not long after the sky darkened, and it was a good time for the shadow demon to make waves. Qin Yang's huge dragon head Vivi protruded out of the sea, and a pair of black dragon eyes stared at the island not far away. Without hesitation, Qin Yang immediately turned into a figure demon, and saw that the huge body gradually shrank, and finally dispersed into a wisp of black smoke. The black smoke drifted, and quickly moved towards the island. Cake Island, also known as Cake Island, is composed of large cakes and cream. It is the station of Bigmom Charlotte Linlin, one of the 4 emperors, in the New World. It looks like a multi-layered cake. Qin Yang sneaked in directly from the front port, and a wisp of black smoke drifted past at night, and the port guards could not find his existence. Going deep into the center of the island, I finally came to Big Mom's lair. It was a huge castle-like building, but it was only made of cheese. After entering the hall, Qin Yang immediately lowered his profile and hid in the shadow of a corner. There were people coming and going in the hall, and many servants were busy and seemed to be preparing for a dinner party. Huan, scan, Qin Yang said in his heart. Receiving the order, Fantasy Gene immediately executed. Scanning is over. No mysterious power was found. No. Qin Yang was startled, then shook his head. It's impossible not to. The dignified Big Mom, how can there be no devil fruit in his hand? Is it hiding somewhere? Qin Yang pondered in his heart that his scanning range is very wide, and ordinary devil fruits can be felt within 300 meters. Sneak into other places and try. This is just the entrance hall, maybe hidden deeper. Charlotte Linlin doesn't have devil fruit in his hands. Qin Yang is 10,000 unbelievers, so he didn't give up and chose to go deeper. Just as he was about to start, suddenly there were footsteps outside the door, then the door opened, and 3 figures walked in. One of them, Qin Yang, happened to know each other and had a fight. Charlotte Cracker, who hid his body in a biscuit doll and followed the 2 women. One of the women looked like an old witch, with a long scar on her face, tall, looking like a dry tree, skin more like old bark, wearing a long dress and black fur coat. The other woman was much younger, in her 20s, with a very tall stature, wearing a hat and a scarf, long hair reaching her legs, and a pair of long legs that looked like a long-legged clan, with a spiral sword on her back. Sheath, and a pair of black patterned boots underfoot. Seeing these 3 people entering the door, the busy servants stopped all of a sudden. Master Cracker. Lord Smoothie. Master Bray. C. Hearing this, Qin Yang's heart moved. I immediately recognized who the 3 were. Needless to say, Charlotte Cracker is the 10th son of Charlotte Linlin, and one of the dessert stars has a bounty of 750 million. And that old witch is Charlotte Brie, the 8th female, with the ability of mirror fruit. As for the girl with long legs, she is the 14th girl in the family and one of the 4 dessert stars, with a bounty of 900 million. The old witch Blay let out a weird smile and said, you guys are busy. Smoothie, let's go to the banquet hall first. After saying that, the 3 of them did not stay in the front hall, and walked away directly. Qin Yang moved quickly, taking advantage of the moment when the other party was closest to him, directly penetrated into the shadow of the old witch from the shadow in the corner of the wall. As for why the old witch was chosen, it was because this guy was the weakest, and it was not easy to find out. Suddenly, the long-legged girl Smoothie took a step. Did there be something behind us just now? She turned around and found that everything was normal. Today is your birthday party, why are you suspicious? Cracker grinned. You don't think that sea dragon really dares to come here, do you? Hearing this, the long-legged female Smoothie snorted softly, took back observation hockey, and said, Mom has been very careful recently. As long as the sea dragon dares to show up, we can kill it together. It doesn't dare to come. Cracker snorted coldly. At least it doesn't dare to come alone, maybe with the rest of the cadres from the dream, but it's unlikely. In his opinion, even if the Whitebeard pirates came and fought at their home, it would be impossible to beat them. As long as the dream is not crazy, it can't come true. While talking, the 3 came to the banquet hall. A long square table with gourmet delicacies, cakes and desserts on the table. At this moment, many family members have arrived, men and women, with different shapes, and some are not even pure human races, and some are nearly 10 meters tall, and they are simply giants. Among the group of people, Chin-Yong saw Charlotte Keene, the unlucky guy who was caught by him and then used as a bargaining chip to blackmail Big Mom. Quietly hiding in the shadows, Chin-Yong wondered if he should catch this guy and ask about the whereabouts of the fruit. At this time, a word from the old witch, Bray, made him change his mind. Hee, you go first, I have one more thing to do. It was a trap specially laid for Hailong by my mother's instructions. Trap? Smoothie glanced at her. I haven't heard of it. Dream and the others have been collecting devil fruits. Although I don't know the reason, they probably can lead snakes out of their holes, so my mother set up a trap. Old witch laughed slyly, I'll go first. Saying this, she turned and left the banquet hall. Chin-Yong was still lurking in the shadow of the other party, and she was not in a hurry to leave. She wanted to see what traps Charlotte Linlin would set up to wait for him. Not long after, the old witch climbed the stairs to the upper floor of the building, and finally stopped in front of a door. Tuck tuck tuck. After knocking on the door, a cold female voice sounded from the door. Come in. Crack, the old witch gate of opening entered. Chin-Yong also looked at it a little. It was a woman in her early 20s, sitting at a small table by the window, staring out the window. Ligiette, I have already brought the things my mother asked me to bring. The old witch Bree giggled. I saw her hands up and down, palms facing each other. Suddenly, a magical mirror surface appeared. Ripples rippled on the mirror surface, and with a puff, a devil fruit bounced out of the mirror and landed on the table. The woman named Ligiette nodded and said, there are 5 of them. Dreamers are very concerned about devil fruits. As long as they use these, 1.4 can set up traps. Hee, what kind of trap? The old witch asked with a smile. Mama will never be stupid or underestimate dreamers. Ligiette looked up at Bree. I can't tell, maybe their people are listening to us at this moment. That's impossible. The old witch shook her head. Your movie master is really listening. Chin-Yong was full of slanders, but this little girl was cautious. He didn't think the other party could find him. Unless it was the ability to listen to all things, it would be very difficult to detect him. Even Sengoku was only slightly suspicious. However, compared to this, Ligiette's words of, there are already 5 inches made his eyes shine. 5 pieces. Once you get it, you can make up the amount and you can upgrade to the star. Speaking of which, Ligiette, this woman is the one with the power of the dream fruit. She was the one who helped Big Mom escape last time. Chin-Yong didn't rush to start. He was going to find out the situation first. At least he had to know where the devil fruit was. Chapter 0151-5 Fruits. Second update. Quietly ask for an automatic ~O, hollow square O. I've got the stuff for you. You're busy first. I'll go to Smoothie's birthday party first. The old witch Bray laughed twice, turned and walked towards the door. After just taking 2 steps, she paused again, and said, your dream world is unfolding. If you find an intruder, remember to notify us. I also really want to meet for a while. Fantastic Kadri. After she finished speaking, she went out. And taking this opportunity, Chin-Yong quietly got out of the shadow of the other party and got into Ligiette's shadow. Huh. Ligiette breathed a sigh of relief after waiting for the others to leave. To be honest, she didn't like the old witch Bray very much. She had a dream world, and the old witch had a mirror world. It was probably because the same sex repelled each other, and the other party was her sister. Shaking her head, Ligiette set her eyes on the fruit on the small table, hesitated a little, reached out to grab the fruit, and then her eyes narrowed. The fruit actually disappeared like an illusory transparent. Next, first bring the fruit into the treasure house, then lay a trap in the treasure house, and then release a little news to lure dreamers into being fooled. So, Ligiette slowly got up and prepared to act. However, just as her buttocks left the chair, a plume of black smoke rose from the shadows. The black smoke billowed and condensed into a human form. The figure hugged Ligiette's waist in one hand, and held a dark sharp blade in the other hand, pressing it against her neck. The sharp edge can cut through the skin at any time and kill it with one blow. Don't move, don't scream. The shadow demon's voice was low, and suddenly appeared, taking advantage of the moment when the other party was relaxed. He subdued him at once. Ligiette's body trembled, and her whole body froze for a moment. Her eyes flashed a bit of shock, and then she regained her composure. I admired it. I really didn't expect that there are dozens of family members under such a strict defense. In this case, you can sneak in here. I won the prize, Qinyang said calmly. You don't want to do any small tricks. As long as you cooperate well, I don't need to kill you. Taking a deep breath, Ligiette said in a clear voice, Shadow Demon, what is your purpose, tell me. Knowingly asking, Qinyang said calmly, where is the devil fruit? Did you hear that? Ligiette frowned, it's really amazing, but I haven't let up. Observation Hockey has a firm grasp of all the auras around, and it hasn't been able to find you. Answer the question. Since you asked that, then, she laughed suddenly, and then her eyes narrowed. Dream world unfolds. The next moment, Qinyang realized that there was a force coming, dragging him and Ligiette into Q_Ming. As less than or equal to 7, _. The strange light flashed, the scenery changed, and in the blink of an eye, the two of Qinyang had already appeared in a hall. This is a treasure trove. The treasure house is huge, with 16 stone pillars standing on both sides. In the center of the treasure house, gold and silver treasures are piled up. Within the pile of treasures, there are 5 stone platforms. On the stone platforms, 5 are placed quietly. Fruit. Seeing the existence of the fruit, Qinyang immediately raised his eyebrows, grasped Ligiette firmly, and said, is this a dream world? That's right. The fruit you want is right there. Ligiette said calmly. I don't believe it. Qinyang pressed the sharp blade closer, and the sharp blade of darkness slightly cut Ligiette's neck. At the same time, he called out in his heart, Phantom, scan. Scanning is over. Mysterious power is found, the number is 5, the distance is 50 meters, and the direction is straight ahead. The words of Fantasy Jean immediately dispelled Qinyang's doubts. Is it true? Qinyang couldn't help being a little surprised. Is this woman stupid? Got a trap. I'm being subdued by you now, so I don't dare to lie to you. Ligiette said lightly, what you want is right here. Hey. Qinyang didn't rush to do it, but said with a low smile, let me guess. The trap you mentioned before was to be placed in the treasure house and use the fruit to lure us to appear. You were just a little surprised when I subdued you just now. Immediately choose to bring me into the dream world. It seems that the so-called trap is this. Hearing this, Ligiette's eyes flashed, and after a while, she said, yes. There is a characteristic of the dream world. It is easy to get in, but difficult to get out. Among the countless exits, only one is true. As the master of the dream world, if you die, the dream world will disappear, and those who stay in the dream world will immediately fall into eternal darkness. You don't dare to kill me now. Quote. She said that, Qinyang is really not easy to kill. It's not that he is worried about being locked in the dream world. This Qinyang is not afraid. The big deal is to jump directly in space, choose a target, and jump to another place. 5 fruits in front of him, he can walk, but he can't carry anything to jump. Not bad, little girl, decisive enough. Qinyang said with a chuckle. Thank you. Ligiette Bibi Isho said, now, we can't help each other, why don't we take a step back and let me go first? It seems that even if you are the master of the dream world, you can't leave the dream world directly, you can only go through the exit, you said. If she could leave with a single thought, Ligiette wouldn't be standing here obediently, she just left and locked him in the dream world, wouldn't it be nice? Thinking of this, Qinyang put away the dark blade, and saw that the blade twisted and turned into a black rope, tying Ligiette. After doing this, he let go of Lidget. You are very cautious. Lidget tried to struggle, but couldn't break free. However, the next moment, she whispered softly, unfortunately, you don't understand the ability of the dream world. Night. In the coquettish voice, she retreated abruptly. At the same time, in front of her, 10 rays of light flickered, and 10 handsome gentlemen with western swords appeared out of thin air. The moment they appeared, these 10 people drew their swords in unison and killed Qin Yang. Puff! A sword pierced through the chest of the shadow demon, and then the other 9 people came round to kill, and 10 sharp swords pierced all over the body. However, the shadow demon directly ignored all attacks and calmly looked at Lizzie, who was hiding away. Be smart, do you think I'll be on guard? During the speech, Qin Yang raised his hand, and the dark power suddenly condensed, and an invisible rope linked the black rope on Lidget's body. Lidget, who was about to escape from the treasury, was immediately unable to take another step due to the tension of the rope. Her complexion changed slightly, and she scolded, cut it off. A knight received the order and immediately drew his sword and slashed at the black rope. However, when the knife fell, it penetrated directly and could not be hit at all. What? Lidget was stunned. Why? The black rope can bind her. It should be a solid body, but the physical attack is ineffective, which is incredible. He. Qin Yang stepped forward and directly penetrated the knights in front of him. I don't know much about the dream world, but you don't know my abilities either. If you want to run, stop dreaming. Chapter 0152_5 Sea Dragon. The third update continued to seek automatic mouth and teeth . If you want to run, stop dreaming. Qin Yang glanced at the woman, tightened the dark rope in his hand, then turned and walked towards the devil fruit. Seeing this, the 10 knights immediately launched an attack. However, Qin Yang ignored the physical damage and was too lazy to deal with it. All attacks penetrate the shadow demon's body, unable to cause the slightest damage, let alone block the slightest. Lidget's face was not very good. She could not break free from the bondage, and could only be dragged by Qin Yang to walk. Why I can bind my body, but the Dream Knight can't cut it off. Incomprehensible. Just like Qin Yang couldn't figure out how the 10 knights came out, she couldn't figure out the shadow demon's ability. However, Qin Yang had no interest in taking care of her for the time being. He walked to the 5 stone platforms, waved his hand, and created a black mist, wrapping the 5 fruits. The thing is in hand, ready to withdraw. Qin Yang collected the fruit, turned his eyes, and was ready to leave. He didn't carry all the fruits, and put the 8 in his hand in Ankang's mouth. He had to go to the coast to receive them, and then immediately absorb these fruits to raise the sea dragon to 5 stars. However, before that, we have to find the exit to the dream world. Thinking like this, Qin Yang glanced at the mountains of treasures around him, shook his head, and chose to give up. These treasures did tempt one person, but the shadow demon couldn't carry so many things, and it was inconvenient to run away. Woman, tell me, where is the exit? As he spoke, Qin Yang pulled the dark rope and dragged the other party towards the door of the treasure house. HMPH, dreaming. You kill me, Lidget snorted coldly and said. Qin Yang continued to walk and came to the door of the treasure house. Then he looked sideways at the other party. Why don't you commit suicide? If you commit suicide, the dream world will collapse, and then I will be locked here forever. Hearing this, Lidget's face turned cold, but she didn't speak. You're still afraid of death. Qin Yang curled his lips. You are so young, so naturally you don't want to die easily. You must be thinking in the bottom of your heart that you haven't reached a dead end yet. Fortunately, you will delay the time until the family members find out the situation in the dream world. And then bring in reinforcements so they can kill me. After speaking, Qin Yang shook his head again. No, maybe there are other people in the dream world. No matter which one, you don't want to die yet. Lidget gritted her teeth and glared at Qin Yang fiercely. She had to admit that the other party guessed 7 or 8 points correctly. There are indeed other people in the dream world. Seeing that she didn't say a word, Qin didn't bother to argue with her anymore. It was important to find an exit. Standing in front of the door, Qin pushed the door open with force, and after taking one step, the scene suddenly changed. He came to a new room. It's a casino, full of people, and all kinds of people are gambling for entertainment. Qin stood in the crowd, but Vivi was startled. Everyone seemed to have not noticed his sudden appearance, and were having fun on their own. No, these are all dummies, just like the knights just now. Qin raised his eyebrows, glanced at Ligiette, and said, "We just passed the treasure house gate and came here at once, and the gate is also gone, can't go back." "Is that so?" "Humph, no comment." "Hee, I can guess even if you don't say it." Qin eyes flickered, and he basically guessed it. He didn't stay in the casino, he continued to walk forward, came to a door and pushed open it. Gee. The scene changed again, this time, it was the prison. Qin stood in a dark corridor, the walls on both sides were lit with lights, and in a dozen cells, all kinds of people were being held. "Huh, do you still have this kind of interest? Prisoners, jailers, whipping." Qin stared at it for a moment before smiling. "Is this a labyrinth? Behind every door, is there a different room?" "That's right," Ligiette said in a cold voice. "This is the Dreamland Gallery. The number of rooms is more than 1,000. If you want to find the exit, it is impossible. 1 in 1,000 chance. Little girl, don't talk too much, I'll show you right away." With a chuckle, Qin then walked to the door and pushed it open again. The scene changed, this time, it was a world of flames. In the center of the raging fire, there was a sleeping Arlong that was several tens of meters in size. As if sensing two intruders, the fire dragon suddenly opened his eyes and then roared. "Reptile, interrupting my sleep, you are courting death." Boom. The huge fireball rolled over, as if to completely swallow Qin and the two of them. Shadow control. Qin eyes narrowed, and thick black smoke immediately overflowed under his feet. This thick smoke turned into a dark great wall in front of him, blocking the flames. Without staying, Qin dragged Ligiette directly into the next room. Click. The scene changed, this time, it was a treasure house. There are still 16 stone pillars and 5 stone platforms, but the 5 fruits on the stone platforms have been taken away. What? Ligiette's eyes widened and she looked at Qin in disbelief. How is this possible? How did you get back here? Her tone was unbelievable, her heart was shaking, and she almost doubted life. He. Qin laughed the moment he saw the treasure house, as expected. Your dream world can spy on people's hearts. Hearing this, Ligiette's complexion changed greatly, her eyes were horrified. In less than 10 minutes, this guy has actually figured out some of the rules of the dream world. The dream hall, you mentioned, is divided into 2 rules, nightmare, and beautiful dream. These 2 rules directly affect what the room behind the door is. Qin said calmly. Not only that, these 2 rules alternate in succession. After a beautiful dream, it must be a nightmare. A beautiful dream will respond to what the mind thinks, while a nightmare is the complete opposite. I was in the prison cell, thinking about leaving. After playing Gate of Opening, I saw a flame Arlong, which is probably a gatekeeper-like character. Maybe I can beat it and I can leave, but I may not be able to leave. Quote. The more she listened, the more ugly Ligiette's face became. This man is so scary. In such a short period of time, I actually figured out the 2 rules of the dream hall. You must know that it took Big Mom a quarter of an hour to guess a little. Seeing her expression, Qin grinned. Actually, when I saw you summoning 10 knights, I had some guesses. The moment you said Dreamland, I basically already sure. When I saw Arlong, I thought I guessed right, until now, seeing the treasure room. As he spoke, Qin turned around and pushed open the door. I have found the exit. Ka. The door was pushed open, and Qin took each other and took a step forward. At the same time, in the previous room, the space rippled, and two figures appeared one after another. Ha ha ha, it's true. If you think about it, the dream world will give back. This rule, you, the master of the dream world, can't violate it. Qin laughed, pushed open the window, and flew out with a jump. Goodbye. Seeing this, Li Jiet's complexion changed greatly. The dream unfolds. As soon as the voice fell, a bizarre scene emerged from her body, and the scene spread rapidly, as if everything would be included in it. At the same time, her voice spread throughout the palace. Fantasy intruder. Stop him. He stole the devil fruit. Suddenly, everyone rioted. At this moment, Qin has already fled towards the island at a high speed. Hurry up, they'll have to catch up in a few minutes. Looking back, the tracker could already be found. Qin didn't dare to stay, and tried his best to speed up. A quarter of an hour later, he came to a quiet shore. The sea ahead was turbulent, and a monkfish with a lantern on its head slowly surfaced. Spit it out. Hearing the order, Lantern Ankang's mouth bulged, wow, and spit out a package. Qin didn't have time to wrestle with the disgusting problem, so he opened the include and put all the fruits in front of him. Absorb. The invisible force swept across, one fruit after another turned into powder and disappeared, and all the cells in Qin body were excited. Absorptive absorption completed. At the same time, Qin let out a dragon roar. Roar. The dragon's roar resounded throughout the island, and Longwei suppressed all the trackers. In an instant, everyone felt their bodies heavy, and immediately some weak-willed people passed out. And in Qin mind, information was changing. The first change, Sea Dragon. Star rating. Finally full star. Quote. Qin felt the explosive power filling his body, and the next moment, a pitch-black dragon suddenly appeared. Chapter 0153_Sea Dragon God. The first update ~seeking automatic TT. Roar. The loud dragon roar resounded through the night, and with the appearance of the real dragon's body, a huge dragon's might as if it was a substance suppressed everything on the Cake Island. Big Mom pirates that were following them fainted immediately. The rest of the people also stopped suddenly, half-bent, resisting this heavy pressure with horror on their faces. What? A sea dragon? Damn it, there seems to be a mountain on top of it, and it can't even move. Don't get close, you see. Countless pairs of eyes looked up, and in the sky above the island, a giant dragon lifted off the ground, holding its head high and uttering a thunderous dragon roar. At the moment above the sky, dark clouds are densely covered, and the sound of rumbling is constant, as if the thunder will be knocked down at any time, and the transformed sea dragon will be killed. Qin felt the cheers and excitement of the cells in his whole body. It was like a beggar who had been hungry for several days and was frantically devouring the surrounding energy. The first thing to change is the dragon horn. The pair of dragon horns, the hardest in the body, began to fork slowly. At the same time, the real dragon body of the sea dragon gradually became larger. The real dragon blood in the whole body burns together at this moment, and the huge power nourishes the whole body, as if in a short period of time, a sea dragon has entered into adulthood from adolescence. 110 meters, 120 meters, 130 meters. Every second that passed, the body of the sea dragon would increase by 10 meters, and in the blink of an eye, it had already surpassed the 200-meter giant. But this is not over yet. Below, a group of pirates on the island were shocked, and their faces were incredible. He's getting stronger. His body has grown bigger. Monster. Longwei has also become stronger. Anyone with good strength can feel that the sea dragon in the sky becomes stronger by 1 point, and the dragon power that suppresses them will increase by 1 point. Roar. Another dragon roar. Qin seemed to be venting too much energy. It's already 250 meters, and only 1/5 of the power brought by 12 fruits is consumed. Qin couldn't help being a little shocked. He has risen from 2 stars to 4 stars, and it has only changed from 20 meters to 100 meters. The increase of 4 stars to 5 stars will probably break through the kilometer. Although the body is huge or not, it does not mean the strength of strength, but the larger the body, the greater the power that can be accumulated. 300 meters, 400 meters, 500 meters. Everything was as Qin Yang had expected. In just over a minute, the sea dragon swelled directly from its original body of 100 meters to a giant dragon of 1,000 meters. Boom! Under the sound of thunder, the 1,000-meter giant dragon hovering high in the sky seems to be able to circle the island, full of power. The next moment, Qin Yang discovered the abnormality. I seem to be able to control the size of my body. 1,000 meters is not the limit. When Qin Yang thought about it, he immediately noticed the strangeness of his body. However, the best fighting form is not 1,000 meters, but 20 meters. It turns out that condensing all the power into a small body can indeed burst out even more energy. Strong power. He felt that he could control, to make his body bigger, or to change back to the original 20 meters. As for the maximum level, Qin Yang felt that if he didn't consider his combat power, he could probably circle the entire Cake Island and become a dragon on the island. That body size must exceed 10,000 meters, or even reach tens of thousands of meters. However, with such a large body, it is estimated that you don't even think about moving. The energy consumption alone is a huge problem. At this time, the information about Heilong in my mind changed, and it was finally completed. The first change, Sea Dragon. Star Rating. Ability 1, Ocean Current Manipulation. Ability 2, Long Way. Ability 3, Calling the Wind and Calling the Rain. Ability 4, True Dragon Bloodline. Ability 5, Sea Dragon God. Sea Dragon God. Qin Yang got the feedback. Vivi couldn't help but startled. What kind of ability is this? He couldn't understand just by looking at the name. Qin Yang closed his eyes and felt it carefully. After a while, he asked in the bottom of his heart, Huan, what is the 5th ability? Feng Shen. Fantasy Jean's answer was brief and seemed to reveal a weakness. Feng Shen. Qin Yang was puzzled, and then asked, I don't feel much change. The other 4 abilities are somewhat understandable at the beginning of their acquisition. Every transformation, the 5th ability is always the strongest and the most difficult to master. Fantasy Jean has no emotional fluctuations. I can only say that the Sea Dragon has self-contained divine position, and its lifespan is almost infinite, almost immortal. Even if you really die, you can still be resurrected under the power of the gods. You can explore the specific abilities yourself. You have just finished upgrading, and I am already very weak and need to rest. The voice became weaker and weaker, and finally fell completely silent. Hearing this, Qin Yang was speechless for a while. Sea Dragon God is completely different from the other 4, and he cannot feel the specific situation of this ability. But listening to the meaning of Fantasy Jeans, the word, God, of the Sea Dragon God means to obtain the position of God. God, who gave it? Can the heaven and earth be conferred? Qin Yang thought to himself, the lifespan is infinite, but I can feel a little bit. The lifespan of the original 4-star Sea Dragon is about 100,000 years, and the current 5-star Sea Dragon 1,000,000 years. There's no infinite lifespan. If the life force of an ordinary human being is compared to 100 units, then, at this moment, Qin Yang feels that his condition is more than 10,000 times that of an ordinary person, and his lifespan is as high as 1,000,000 years, but 1,000,000 years cannot be said to be infinite, although it is indeed very long, long enough to see the rise and decline of countless civilizations. Forget it, I will study it in detail later. Since it is the 5th ability and the strongest ability, it must be more than this level. Thinking of this, Qin Yang temporarily put down his exploration. He slowly opened his eyes and looked down at the big mom pirates below. Just as he was about to speak, suddenly, his soul shook, and a strange feeling spread throughout his body. As if detached from the Sea Dragon's body, Qin Yang entered a delicate state. When he came back to his senses, he found that he was standing on top of Heilong's head. Yang was taken aback. The next moment, he gained two visions. One is the body and the other is the sea dragon. Not only that, there is some mysterious connection between him and Heilong. It's as if he is a player who can control the character under his feet at will. This is separation. As soon as the voice fell, a message flashed in his mind. Illusory God Qin Yang, Ontology. Star Rating. Chapter 0154 I am Emperor Qin. Ask for a few automatic pressure shocks. O, hollow square, O close black lens bracket. 0 change. Illusory God Qin Yang tilde, Ontology. Star Rating. Ability 1, Phantom Manipulation. Ability 2, Unlocked. Ability 3, Unlocked. Ability 4, Unlocked. Ability 5, Unlocked. Ability 6, Unlocked. The information fed back in his mind immediately surprised Qin Yang. This is the phantom god of the main body. The only 6th star. Although it is only 1 star, the nature of the phantom god is different from the rest of the transformation, and the way of rising stars is also different. To open a star, you need a 5-star transformation, and then each time a 5-star is reached, the phantom god will increase by 1 star. Phantom Control. Afterwards, Qin Yang noticed the 1-star ability, and after a little perception, he suddenly realized something. I can control my transformation like a game character. In the current 1-star state, I can control a total of 10-star transformations at most. 10 stars in total, no more, no less. Calculated separately, that is, 2 5-star transformations, or 5 2-star transformations. If you want to control more transformations at the same time, you can only increase the star of the Phantom God. Well, it is estimated that when the Phantom God reaches 2 stars, the number of stars controlled will double. If you want to control all transformations in one go, 1-star Phantom is not enough, at least 3 stars are required. Qin Yang shook his head, ignoring it for the time being. Compared with this, the combat power of the main body illusion is more worthy of attention. He lowered his head to perceive his own state, and at a glance, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Phantom God, as the name suggests, the whole person seems to be illusory and dreamlike. The person seems to be standing here, and it seems that he is not there. Just like the immortals who jumped out of the 3 realms and are not in the 5 elements, the phantom gods are also a very special state. Qin Yang's own feeling is not too deep. If outsiders see it, he will be shocked. So strong. After feeling it carefully, Qin Yang couldn't help thinking in surprise. The 0th transformation actually has a passive ability that can use a certain skill of all transformations. To be correct, not all of them have to remove the separated sea dragon transformation. That is to say, at this moment, Qin Yang's body has one ability of 5 transformations: Shadow Demon, Ibaraki Doji, Nine-Tailed Demon Fox, Night King, and Lich King. Shadow Demons, Shadow Control. Black Flame, by Ibaraki Doji. Tailed Beast Jade, of the Nine-Tailed Demon Fox. Super Intuition, of the King of Knights. Frost, of the Lich King. What a perverted passive skill. Rao is that Qin Yang knows that the Phantom God will not be weak, but when he really understands, he can't help but be shocked. Only 1 star, there are so many abilities. No, it is not related to the star. As long as he has enough transformations, the Phantom God can have countless skills. Every transformation means an ability. Thinking like this, Qin Yang stretched out his hand and picked up the dragon blood guagong. It happened that this weapon could be used as his own sword, and it was hung directly on his waist at the moment. Sitting cross-legged on top of Heilong's head, Qin Yang was ready to try how to control his transformation. At this moment, an angry shout sounded. Left hand thundercloud. Boom. There was a loud noise in the sky, and within the dark clouds, the thunder dragon rolled over, illuminating half of the sky for a while. Then there was a stab, and a stout thunderbolt fell, hitting the behemoth in an instant. Seeing this, a group of pirates who were suppressed by Longwei suddenly felt their bodies lighten and called out in unison, "Mom! Chi chi chi!" The huge object above the sky seemed to ignore this attack and let the lightning wander around. The electric light circulated, but instead, its dark scales were reflected even more strangely, radiant and captivating. "Small human, tickle." Heilong spit out words, as if dismissive. "HMPH, Heilong, how dare you come to die?" The darkness, Charlotte Linlin's fat body slowly came over. She lifted her left hand lightly, and a soul appeared on it, and electric light wandered around her body, flashing constantly. Qinyang seems to be the master, looking down from a high altitude, his face is calm and terrifying. He was hit by lightning before. Nothing happened. No, to be precise, it should be that the lightning did not hit him at all. He used the shadow to ignore the opponent's attack directly. On the contrary, the sea dragon under him really resisted one shot, but the lightning attack of hundreds of millions of volts was almost like scratching a tickling. Ha ha hey hey. Thinking of this, Qinyang let out a low laugh. Who told you that he is alone? The sudden sound made everyone's expressions change greatly. The voice came from the sky, but it was not the deep feeling of sea dragon, but younger. What? Charlotte Linlin was taken aback and immediately released observation hotkey. The ultimate hearing listens to all things, plants, trees, flying stones, flowers, birds and animals, all things exude their own breath. However, in the perception, it is impossible to detect the existence of people other than sea dragon. Charlotte Linlin didn't believe in evil, her eyes narrowed and she looked at the sky carefully, her pupils shrank suddenly. Although it is very small, compared with the huge body of the sea dragon, it is extremely easy to ignore. But it did exist. Above sea dragon's head, a young man sat upright, holding a long sword on his knees. How is this possible? The old ladies, listen to all things, can't feel it. Charlotte Linlin thought incredulously, and said subconsciously at the same time, who are you? Even the shadow demon's hidden ability couldn't hide from her, but the person in front of her could. And hearing her words, the other pirates stared at each other, and their expressions changed greatly. Who is the person sitting cross-legged on the head of the sea dragon? I am, Emperor Qin. Qinyang's thoughts moved, and his voice spread all over the place. Dream pirates, Captain. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of countless people changed drastically in an instant. Fantastic Captain. This guy is the mysterious Captain, Qin. Who else can stand on the head of the sea dragon besides the Captain? Is it a mysterious powerhouse that surpasses the four emperors? Everyone was shocked. I don't know how many people have guessed, but today I finally saw the legendary mysterious Captain. The illusory existence, everyone can see, he seems to be sitting there, but also seems to be absent. If you don't look carefully, you can't notice it at all. Charlotte Linlin's eyes widened, and there was an unknown fear in her heart. To make the sea dragon of the fourth emperor level willing to serve as a mount, it must be a more powerful existence, even surpassing the power of the fourth emperor level. What are you doing here? Taking a deep breath, Charlotte Linlin said defensively. Knowingly asking. Qinyang chuckled and said, just kill you guys. Do it. Roar. A dragon roar. The next moment, Heilong slapped a claw, and immediately turned into 5 water blades, slashing directly at the people below. Chapter 0155_kill you, what are you doing? The third update tilde, question mark, $omega, I only want 2 or 3 automatics, everyone, do your best tilde. Roar. The dragon's roar resounded through the sky. Qinyang's thoughts moved, and Heilong immediately received the order, slammed a claws, turned into 5 water blades, and slashed straight at the people below. Compared with the attack at the 4-star level, the 5-star sea dragon's combat power is more powerful. At this moment, the 5 water blades shot out, each one is 100 meters huge, like a ship-killing sword, falling from the sky. Seeing this scene, The group of pirates below were in a state of disarray, giving birth to a feeling of insignificance and powerlessness. This claw, do you want to grab the entire island directly? Get out of the way. Unstoppable, the attack range is too large. Mom, be careful. A group of people shouted loudly and dispersed. Seeing this, Charlotte Linlin didn't dodge, she flipped her right palm, and a soul suddenly overflowed from her palm. This soul is like a bright sun, emitting hot and high temperature, like a small sun, illuminating the sky at once. The right-hand sun. A loud roar, Charlotte Linlin slapped a palm against a water blade slash. In an instant, the little sun radiated extremely high temperature, blazing white, and suddenly expanded to hundreds of times its size. Boom! 5 water blades slashed on the white day one after another, and the collision between water and fire caused the two forces to cancel each other out. The sea water evaporated continuously, and the flames were constantly extinguished. You are no longer Benlong's opponent, Heilong said coldly, with a pair of dragon eyes like black gems, watching the situation below. At the same time as his words came out, a crack appeared on the surface of the huge sun in midair. Boom! During the Big Bang, fire rained from the sky. 5 water blades slashed the sun and fell strongly on the island. The earth shook, and the entire port was hit by this blow, like cutting tofu, being cut out of 5 bottomless ravines. The aftermath dissipated and the wind swept through. Even if they were lucky enough to escape a frontal blow, many pirates were directly swept away by the aftermath. Some broke several forest trees, and some were directly blown into the sky, and then fell down, not knowing what to do. A few bones. For a while, the screams continued. Big Mom pirates destroyed a third of them. What? Charlotte Linlin was shocked and her face was dull. Impossible. It broke my son's soul. How long has it been since the last fight? In more than a month, in such a short period of time, the sea dragon has become stronger and evolved. Not only the change in body size, but also the strengthening of attack power is even more alarming. Thinking of this, she immediately shouted, "Spread. The combatants stay, the rest retreat." Mom. Lidget was late, and as soon as she approached, she saw a hellish scene. The shadow demon stole 5 fruits. Hearing this, Charlotte Linlin's expression changed and she was furious. Immediately, she turned her head to look at the sky and shouted angrily, "Emperor Qin. You have already taken the fruit, why are you fighting against the old lady?" She was so angry that her face turned green. Dream had asked her to prepare money to buy her life. Although she had prepared 5 coins for the purpose of setting a trap, but now that the other party had taken it away, she still wanted to kill her, which was too deceiving. Hearing her roar, Qinyang remained calm and said lightly, "I have indeed taken the fruit, but..." Having said this, he paused for a while, and then smiled, "What's the point of destroying you? The meaning of this is like saying, I want to kill you, any resistance from you is futile." Charlotte Linlin not hear it. She was trembling all over, and she was extremely angry. It's too much of a deception. The old lady will kill you with all her might. In the rage, Charlotte Linlin held up her palms, and the power of the soul fruit condensed dark soul bodies. Soul incarnation. One after another, in an instant, hundreds of soul bodies were covered in front of him, and each soul body was dark. These souls devoured each other, condensed, and suddenly turned into a pitch-black monster. This monster is extremely ugly, with a height of several hundred meters, like a giant, standing at the port. Roar! The soul monster opened its mouth and made an unpleasant and harsh sound. The next moment, 2 dark tentacles stretched out from the monster's body and grabbed towards Qinyang above the sky. "I'm going to drain your soul." Charlotte Linlin's eyes were bloodshot, her murderous aura undisguised. "Call." 2 dark tentacles hit him, but Qinyang still sat upright, not too lazy to dodge. As soon as he thought about it, Heilong immediately blocked it with a claw. CC. Tentacle, the right claw of the Chan Rao sea dragon, suddenly swiped, as if it was drawing something. As soon as it was drawn, a strange soul substance was drawn out. 100 years of life. Charlotte Linlin's face was fierce. I don't believe you can resist a few times. Hearing this, Qin Yang let out a low laugh. He could feel that the sea dragon lost a little life energy, but with a mere 100-year lifespan, Drizzle, standing still and letting the other party smoke, he could smoke until dawn, but he couldn't finish it. Ignorance and fearlessness. After making a low comment, Qin Yang slowly stood up. He looked down and said, Heilong, you will deal with other people, Big Mom is up to me, this emperor will do it himself. As soon as the voice fell, he jumped lightly and jumped down. Swish. The dragon's blood guagong suddenly pulled out, and the next moment, poof, black flame overflowed, Chanrao's blade. This is the power of Ibaraki Doji, the fire from hell. Looking for death. Charlotte Linlin's eyes narrowed, and she immediately manipulated the incarnation of the soul. I saw another tentacle stretched out of the avatar's body and hit Qin Yang. Whoosh. The tentacles were as fast as lightning, as if they were going to pierce Qin Yang with a single blow. The sword glowed brightly, and the black light flashed. In an instant, the tentacles were cut into countless pieces, and even Qin Yang couldn't do it. But Charlotte Linlin obviously didn't give up, and the soul incarnation continued to stretch out its tentacles and keep attacking. Tips for carving bugs. Qin Yang's face was calm, and he slashed out with a sword, and suddenly a piece of black flames shot out. These tentacles were touched by the black flames, and they were suddenly burned into powder. Huh, Charlotte Linlin looked surprised. This is a soul attack. What is this black flame? The fire of hell burns everything, and it is a nemesis-like existence for the soul material. Qin Yang swept across and landed lightly. Go to hell. However, at this moment, an angry voice came, and I saw a family member rushing out of the shadows, and at a very close distance, launched an assassination. This sword aimed at the heart. How good is it to run away obediently? Qin Yang didn't look at each other, just raised his left 3.1 hand and Vivi opened his palm. The power of frost in the palm condenses, like a vortex, freezing everything. Grim winter. Boom. In an instant, the blizzard raged, and under this palm, a frost shock immediately hit. The sneak attacker, at close range, was able to achieve an ice sculpture in one breath, only half a second before and after. Not only that, but a large fan-shaped area behind it instantly turned into a world of ice and snow. Seeing this, Charlotte Linlin, who was not far away, looked horrified. To master the power of fire and frost at the same time. She was shocked. She knew that she could control lightning and flames because of the soul fruit, and the one in front of her was using both frost and flame. These two diametrically opposed powers did not conflict. Damn monster. Charlotte Linlin couldn't help shedding a cold sweat. The dreamy captain, it was too weird. The unknown is the most terrifying. Chapter 0156_Hell Big Mom. The first update, ask for automatic O in Ice and Snow, Hollow Square O. By the way, thank you for your support. Yesterday's subscription finally broke 10,000 tilde. The sneak attacker turned into a crystal ice sculpture under Qin Yang's palm. This person maintained a ferocious look, and was only 3 or 5 meters away from Qin Yang. He was hit by the power of frost at such a close distance, and the whole person was sealed from the cellular level. Even if it was thawed out, he was already dead. With a flash of sword light, the dragon blood guagong cut through the ice sculpture mercilessly. In an instant, the statue shattered and fell into pieces of broken ice. And the body that was frozen in it also shattered. Rocco. Charlotte Linlin clenched her teeth and stared at Qin Yang. You bastard. Worry about yourself. Qin Yang said in a low voice, and as soon as he stepped on, the whole person suddenly rushed out, shortened the distance in an instant, and slashed on the head. Seeing this, Charlotte Linlin had a fierce look on her face, raised her right hand, and grabbed it against the blade. Armament. Boom. The hand of flesh and blood, under the entanglement of Hockey's power, actually grabbed a supremely sharp knife. Qin Yang only felt that the sword had hit hard steel, but he could not cut off 15 palms of the opponent's hand. Humph! Cold snorts sounded. Big Mom's bloodshot eyes stared fiercely at Qin Yang. How dare you get close, courting death? Boom! Suddenly, there seemed to be a sound of Hong Zhang Dalu beside the ear, a heavy feeling like a mountain, blessing on the body. Conqueror Haki, but also the advanced stage of Conqueror, directly affects the physical world. Qin Yang felt a little heavier, and immediately stretched out his left hand to face Charlotte Linlin. Ray of Frost. The temperature dropped sharply, as if it had entered a world of ice and snow all at once, and small ice crystal particles formed around everything. And in Qin Yang's palm, the power of frost is like a vortex, gathering power, as if it is the center of the universe, the source of power. Oops! Charlotte Linlin's expression froze, and she suddenly had a bad feeling. At such a close distance, even she wouldn't dare to force it. She's not an undead creature like Kaido. Whoosh! However, the next moment, the frost ray burst out. I saw the power of frost, turned into a snow-white light, and penetrated Charlotte Linlin's mouth in an instant. Qin Yang was startled, and immediately drew his knife and retreated. Is greater than or equal to G. He was sure that he had hit the target, and Charlotte Linlin in front of him was also pierced through the heart with a single blow. However, his super intuition warned of danger. I saw Charlotte Linlin's huge body suddenly stagnant. Starting from its head, it was dyed black little by little, as if ink was poured from the sky, and in an instant, the whole person turned into a dark soul body. At the same time, dozens of meters away, a soul incarnation quickly condensed and turned into the appearance of Charlotte Linlin. As soon as she appeared, she immediately shouted, "Kill him, soul bomb!" As soon as the voice fell, Qin Yang saw the dark soul body in front of him, which suddenly swelled and distorted, and a red light flashed inside it. The next moment, there was a loud bang. Boom! The incarnation of the soul exploded, and a shock accompanied the power of the soul, raging in all directions, swallowing Qin Yang at close range in an instant. This explosion was extremely powerful, and everything within a radius of 200 meters was razed to the ground in just half a second. Not only is it an explosion, but anything that is destroyed and swallowed by the power of the soul will appear a little strange light after the explosion, leaving a trace of soul substance. Not dead. Charlotte Linlin was not interested in caring about this. She stared blankly at the center of the explosion, only to see a figure with a long sword walking out above the smoke and fire. Impossible. She widened her eyes with shock on her face. This is a soul attack, and Logia is not completely immune. Dada's footsteps came out, and under the reflection of the fire, Qin Yang appeared safe and sound. Can the soul fruit still be teleported? No, to be precise, soul transfer with soul incarnation is somewhat similar to the Shadow Dancer of Shadow Fruit, both of which are teleportation, except that one is switched with the shadow, and the other is exchanged with the soul clone. Qin Yang glanced around, and immediately found that there were many dark soul incarnations hidden around. These avatars do not engage in combat, but instead hide in safety, ready to serve as targets for soul transfer. Bastard! How did you escape? Charlotte Linlin couldn't accept it. She exposed her abilities on her side, but the other party didn't have any trouble. Who knows? Qin Yang's wind is light and cloudless, so he can take care of himself. The Shadow Demon's Shadow Flow control is immune to soul attacks, so of course he will be fine. He has just acquired the ability of the Zeroth transformation, and he still needs a familiar process, and he is not in a hurry to kill the other party. At this moment, the blade flicked, and a black flame ignited on it. In the next second, his figure moved and stabbed towards the opponent again. I want to see you teleport a few times. Hearing that, Charlotte Linlin gritted her teeth. It was a hell of a feeling. This person's ability is really strange. Frost and flames, he can ignore his soul explosion, and his speed is quite amazing, which is extremely troublesome to deal with. How to kill him? Are there any weaknesses? Charlotte Linlin racked her brains, thinking fast. However, the information was scarce, and she couldn't figure it out at all, and she couldn't even determine whether the other party was a fruit person. As soon as she gritted her teeth, she did not choose to dodge, but 470 hit Qin Yang with a single palm. The right-hand sun. Immediately, a soul overflowed from the palm, turned into a blazing white light ball, and pressed it directly. Tailed Beast Jade. Seeing this, Qin Yang did his part, slapped with his left hand, and the same evil force turned into a ball, and hit him directly. He's not afraid of explosions, let alone getting hurt, but Charlotte Linlin can't. Two peculiar light balls collided between the palms, and the evil force came into contact with the high temperature of the flame, and a big explosion occurred immediately. Boom! Mixed with the impact of flames and evil, it devoured the earth in an instant and spread out. This time, the scope of the explosion was wider than the previous explosion. Seeing this, the pirates who were entangled in the sea dragon in the distance all looked horrified. Mom! Above the sky, the sea dragon seems to dominate, looking down at the common people. Without Qin Yang's distraction control, he only possesses an instinctive fighting consciousness. Immediately, he opened his huge mouth and let out a roar. Rapid. Boom. The tens of meters thick water column was knocked down from the sky, and the huge amount of seawater turned into a force of hundreds of millions of tons, as if to pierce the island and knock it down to the bottom of the sea. Big Mom pirates changed their expressions in unison. Facing such a powerful force, it was impossible to stop them. Damn monsters. Chapter 0157 The Fall of the Four Emperors. The Cake Island port is in a mess at the moment. The earth collapsed, the islands were cracked, and the entire nest of the four emperors was covered in utter emptiness. Big Mom pirate group suffered casualties, and there were many pirates with a level of over 100 million, and even combatants suffered casualties. A torrent that fell from the sky, containing the power of hundreds of millions of tons of seawater, hit the island heavily. Boom! In an instant, the Cake Island shook violently, and the rapids slapped the ground, creating a deep hole. The sea dragon's mouth was thrown, and the rapids seemed to wash away stains, killing and sweeping the pirates below. The ocean current spreads and turns into a big wave. Under the force of nature, the individual appears insignificant. Countless pirates run wildly, trying to escape, but they cannot escape the speed of the seawater. In just a few tens of seconds, the island's port was almost submerged by seawater, and for a while, screams continued. On the other side, the aftermath of the explosion dissipated, and Qin Yang's figure slowly appeared in the huge deep pit with a diameter of 100 meters. Even with such a serious explosion, he couldn't hurt him in the slightest, and he looked forward quietly at this moment. The smoke and dust dissipated, and the seawater spread toward this side, which would soon fill the deep hole. Charlotte Linlin didn't have the heart to pay attention. She stared at Qin Yang, her face extremely ugly. You're all right. Her right hand was hanging down, dripping blood. That kind of big explosion, no matter how strong her armament is, it can't defend at such a close distance. After a hard resistance, the right hand was almost blown to pieces, dripping with blood, and it was horrible to watch. On the other hand, the opponent still has no scars, and his clothes are not messy at all. No, you absolutely can't resist the power of the explosion. Charlotte Linlin looked grim. Looking back carefully at the moment of the explosion, Charlotte Linlin can be sure that the other's body, like Logia, entered a fluid state, ignoring the big explosion. What the hell is going on? She shook her heart and couldn't help shouting angrily. It's frost, it's fire again. It's fluid, it's swordsman again. It's even immune to soul attacks, and it even possesses that kind of evil. The power. Who are you? This is definitely not a capable person. If the ability person has such complex ability characteristics, how could she have never seen Big Mom? He. Qin Yang smiled in a low voice, and walked towards the other party, step by step, not too fast. What are you laughing at? Damn monster. Charlotte Linlin was furious, murderous as if it were real. Monster. Chin Yong raised his eyebrows. What do you think? You are more like a monster, right? He was unharmed now. The other party was covered in blood and his face was distorted. Chin Yong ignored the other party's murderous aura and took it step by step. You want to kill the old lady? Charlotte Linlin snorted coldly, and said, the New World maintains the overall calm. That is, there are 4 emperors suppressing the sea area. If you kill the old lady, the whole world will be turbulent tomorrow. At the beginning of the Great Pirate Era, the New World was quite chaotic. It was not until the rise of the 4 emperors that peace was restored, at least on the surface. However, this kind of calm is false. The corner of the 4 emperors collapses, and the vacated territory will immediately attract countless forces to devour them frantically, and it will be too chaotic at that time. 7 feet and LT, Sean, what's the matter with me? And LT, Hu Yin tilde. Chin Yang's expression was indifferent and he continued to walk. The majesty of dreams is not to be offended, you should die. W. Step on the power of frost and spread out from under your feet, and the ground begins to freeze and spread to all directions. Unconsciously, the surrounding temperature dropped, as if it had entered winter, and light snow fell. Ha ha ha, just because you want to kill the old lady. Charlotte Linlin laughed and sneered. Before you were only intimidated by your name. In fact, you are not strong enough to surpass the 4 emperors. Your ability is indeed strange, so many kinds of power, even I have never seen anyone who can control it. Quote. Speaking of which, she flashed a trace of disdain, but if you want to kill the old lady, just dream. Hearing this, Chin Yong Isho suddenly stopped and stopped 10 meters in front of Big Mom. He slowly raised his left hand, and the power of frost in his palm turned into a vortex, constantly absorbing the surrounding power. The next moment, a cone-shaped blast of frost blasted out suddenly. Winter's fury. Woohoo! The frost that whizzed away seemed to be formed by countless blizzards, and wherever it passed, everything turned into a world of ice and snow. This fan-shaped attack, the further forward, the larger the spread, and the harder it is to dodge. Soul switch. Charlotte Linlin snorted coldly. At this moment, her right hand was injured and she was unable to hit the sun on her right hand, so she dodged decisively. I saw her body turned into pitch black, turned into a soul incarnation, and then frozen by the blow of winter's wrath, before it even had time to explode. At the same time, about 100 meters away on the left-hand side, a soul incarnation condensed and appeared, turning into the appearance of Charlotte Linlin. I've seen through your abilities. She grinned, and suddenly a claw in the void grabbed a piece of soul substance from under the earth. After getting this strange energy, Charlotte Linlin immediately opened her mouth to swallow it, and immediately, the wound on her right arm was repaired visibly. Seeing this, Chin Yong suddenly laughed. Kill her, shadow demon. Hearing this whisper suddenly, Charlotte Linlin's movements stopped, and her pupils contracted suddenly. Puff! A dark blade suddenly pierced through her heart, and the attack from behind exceeded everyone's expectations. You! Charlotte Linlin bowed her head in disbelief, spit out blood with a wow, impossible. She was so weak that she couldn't even deploy Haki's defense. With a puff, another dark blade pierced her mouth. At the same time, behind him, a dark shadow gradually appeared. The shadow had no facial features, only a pair of ruthless eyes. Why should I hit a large frost attack? Chin Yong put away the dragon's blood and guagong, turned around and walked towards the other party. Don't you think it's strange? It's obviously not going to hit you. Charlotte Linlin's eyes are dim and her consciousness is blurred. Even if she is the 4th emperor, she is not far from death if her heart is pierced. Just heard Chin Yong say as he walked, there are 11 incarnations of your hidden soul. I hit 10 of them with ice just now, and I will leave this one for you to use for soul switching. After speaking, he chuckled again. You really teleported here. What when? Charlotte Linlin's mouth was long, and blood was constantly spilling out. From the moment I saw you using teleport. Qinyang said calmly. Of course, I have other ways to kill you, but I didn't expect that the first trap, you will fall. It's a pity, 4 emperors big mom, you are going to die, what are your last words? He walked out of the huge pothole, stood 10 meters away from the other party, and watched silently. He. Even though she was seriously injured and dying, Charlotte Linlin didn't show any depression, but instead let out a series of weird smiles, coughing a few mouthfuls of blood while laughing. Emperor Qin, do you think you won? I remember this account. The name of the 4 emperors is given to you. Cake Island is also given to you. Let's wait and see. With all her strength, she burst out. Qinyang raised his eyebrows and saw that the other party disappeared out of thin air, and he couldn't even catch the shadow demon's restraint. Fleeing from the dream world again. He looked sideways behind him, and a few hundred meters away, Li Jiat, the person with the power of the dream fruit, also disappeared. I don't know if it was because of the hasty escape, but there are still many pirates who have not been able to leave. Only a few important characters have disappeared. Most of the family members have died, and the entire pirate group has fallen apart. Big Mom, one of the 4 emperors, was seriously injured, and he was dying. Think I don't know about the dream world? Qinyang was very calm. Dream world can't jump in space like shadow demons, they just hide in. Since I can find the exit, I can also find the entrance. Thinking so, he waved his hand, recalled the shadow demon, then looked at the sea dragon above the sky, and sent out a thought. The next moment, the sea dragon circled down, and Qinyang jumped onto the dragon head. Looking down at everything below like an emperor, the entire cake is within sight. I'll freeze the entire island, including the space, how do you guys get out? Qinyang let out a low laugh, stretched out his right palm, his eyes flashed, and then, a huge force of frost absorbed everything around him. At the same time, the sea dragon set off a huge wave, submerging the entire island. With the cooperation of the two, in an instant, the entire Cake Island turned into an island of ice. Next, is the entrance to the dream world. Chapter 0159_ The 7th Change Uchiha Itachi. O, hollow square, O close black lens bracket. Big Mom Pirates was shocking, the real headache for Marine was the follow-up. Marine to be happy just because one of the 4 Emperor-level pirates has disappeared. Unfortunately, the corner of the 4 Emperors collapsed and a large area of the sea was vacated in the New World. I don't know how many forces will be like sharks smelling fishy. Crazy fight. Moreover, the sea area is only one aspect, and what the real careerists aim at is probably a higher level. Bastard, what the hell are these lunatics trying to do? Sengoku's face is not very good, and his mood is very complicated. In the conference room, the atmosphere was dignified, the air seemed to be filled with lead, and it became very depressing. The 3 Admiral, the 16 Vice Admiral, and the 48 Rear Admiral, the mainstay of Marine's headquarters, gathered together. At this moment, no one spoke, and one by one was silent, digesting this shocking news. It was originally discussing how to arrest the Lich King, who committed a serious crime, but the news came in the middle and had to be stopped. After a while, Garp Vice Admiral said solemnly, the situation is not very good. Although there are only 4 of the 4 Emperors, the next level forces, the big pirates, are overwhelming. Suru Vice Admiral shook his head and said with a wry smile, those lunatics killed Big Mom, I'm afraid they didn't even have the idea of taking over the power range, otherwise they wouldn't have done it until now. The battle happened a few days ago, and they got the news that now, during this time, Dream didn't do anything at all, obviously not interested in the site. This news is very bad for Marine, because they are going to wipe their butts instead, and wipe their butts for the Dream Pirates. It sounds incredible, but when you think about it, that's what happened. Marine couldn't just sit back and watch the chaos in the New World. It would be innocent people who would suffer at that time, and the allied countries of the various world governments would also send out a request for help. Hey! The sigh sounded, and with the opening of these big men, the people below began to express their opinions. It's been a while since bad things. Before the Lich King attacked our deep-sea prison, then the 4 emperors of the Alliance attacked Red Hair, and after that, Dream killed the Big Mom pirates. It's only been less than a month, and one thing after another. The first 2 are still under control. The problem is the destruction of the Big Mom pirate group. This is a major event that shocked the world. When the time comes, the next level forces like, subverting the 4 emperors' alliance, will be one after another. Come out. Different mitigation. Prioritize the problem of Big Mom. One more thing. Some time ago, 2 Tenryubito went to East Blue. They had an accident in the middle and lost contact. The Holy Land asked us to help in the search. It's been almost a month, and there's no news. I'm afraid it's dead in the sea. There are many people who slander in the bottom of their hearts, but they dare not say it directly. After all, it is Tenryubito. The 4 emperors' issue is more important. Akainu snorted coldly, ignoring Tenryubito's question. We have a military base near the Big Mom Sea area, and there will be chaos anyway, so why not grab a sea area and use it as a marine control area? Yes, Vice Admiral immediately agreed. We have too few control areas in the New World, less than 1/3 of any of the 4 emperors, and we should indeed strengthen our control. Dignified Marine Headquarters, the main force to maintain world peace, in the waters controlled by the New World, is not comparable to a pirate group, and it is grieved and infuriated. All the officers looked at Sengoku in unison. Seeing this, Sengoku calmed down a little. The distance is too far to send so many troops. Hearing this, everyone was helpless. It's really too far, and the supply problem alone can annoy people, and they can't directly plunder the country, civilians, and merchant ships like pirates. However, Sengoku suddenly looked at a rear admiral and asked, how about the investigation on the Lich King? The rear admiral, who was in charge of intelligence work, was slightly hesitant when he heard the question. Well, report back to the marshal. There is some relevant information. Speak. There is a barren island near the waters of the Devil's Triangle. Recently, there seems to be a mutation there. Passing ships said that they have seen living skeletons. The Lich King. Sengoku's eyes flashed, and after a long silence, he gritted his teeth. In order to deal with the future situation, we need to have a serious talk with Dream. Akainu, there is a task for you. The sun was in the sky. It was noon. Above the thousands of meters in the sky beyond the naked eye, a dark dragon flew by, and a young figure crossed his knees on it. Chinyang closed his eyes and focused most of his attention on Hailong. As the main body, he can separate his attention and directly control the sea dragon. Along the way, he has become proficient in the application of this ability. Have been studying the Sea Dragon's 5-star ability, Sea Dragon God. Unfortunately, this ability is quite different from the previous 4, and there has been no major breakthrough yet. How do you use it? Chinyang frowned and said inwardly, it's not a simple skill, and it's not like a real dragon bloodline. It can be directly strengthened. After studying for a while, Chinyang gave up temporarily. He reached out and touched it and took out a devil fruit from behind. This is the remaining one after upgrading the sea dragon. After pondering for a while, Chinyang immediately decided to absorb it. Anyway, a fruit can't be upgraded, so it's better to absorb it and start a new transformation, so that the main body can have one more skill. Thinking of this, his eyes condensed slightly, and an invisible force swept over, swallowing the mysterious power contained in the fruit. In an instant, the fruit turned into powder, and Chinyang felt a mysterious force nourishing the cells of his body. His facial appearance has changed slightly, his height has dropped by more than 10 centimeters, and some kind of special energy has appeared in his body. A set of robes with white clouds on a black background appeared on his body, his short hair became slightly longer, and there was even a forehead guard on his forehead. After the changes in clothing, appearance, and energy, information about the new transformation poured into Chinyang's mind immediately. 7th change, Uchiha Itachi. Star rating. Ability 1, Kaleidoscope Writing Wheel Eye. Ability 2, Ninjutsu Fire Escape. Ability 3, unlocked. Ability 4, unlocked. Ability 5, unlocked. After receiving all the information, Chinyang was immediately stunned and couldn't help touching his cheek. This is the first human transformation. It's still a Hokage character. While speaking, Chinyang's eyes narrowed. Immediately, his eyes turned from black to red, and a pitch-black Guyu appeared quietly. This Guyu turned around, and a second one appeared, followed by a third one. But this is not the end. These three Guyu suddenly turned into a kaleidoscope. Everything in the world seemed to be countless times clearer. Chinyang's eyes swept across, and he felt the surging pupil power contained in his eyes. Eyes that are very good at illusion. Chinyang murmured, "It's an unexpected joy." Chapter 0160_monthly reading. Second update tilde. There was an error in the previous chapter. It was a red cloud on a black background, not a robe with white clouds on a black background. O, hollow square O. Kaleidoscope writing wheel I. The strange black and red color exudes a frightening breath. A pair of eyes seems to have great majesty, and just by looking at them, you will feel a strange and unpredictable power. It's only 2 stars, it's a kaleidoscope. Chinyang touched his eyes and said softly, "Is 1 star a 3-star jade? 2-star kaleidoscope, 3-star eternal kaleidoscope, 4-star Rinnegan. What about 5 stars? Chinyang thought about it, and became familiar with the abilities of these eyes. This pair of kaleidoscope writing wheel eyes is Uchiha Itachi's big windmill shape, and those few signature pupil techniques must be available. The left eye, Amaterasu, for the right eye. Yudu is one of the pupil techniques that bring out the hypnotic eye to the extreme. It is a visual illusion technique that needs to meet the target person before it can be activated. Chinyang just fumbled for a moment, and probably figured out how to use it, but now there is no experimental target, and he has no way to verify the power. Right eye Amaterasu. Putting aside Yudu with his left eye temporarily, Chinyang continued to explore the pupil technique of his right eye. Amaterasu is an inextinguishable black flame, similar to Ibaraki Doji's black flame, except that Ibaraki's black flame is currently unable to be inextinguishable, and may not be as powerful as Amaterasu. After understanding how to use it, Chinyang retracted the kaleidoscope writing wheel eye, turned it back into the shape of a 3-hooked jade, and kept it. Using the kaleidoscope all the time will consume pupil power. Too much pupil power consumption will cause vision loss until complete blindness. Chinyang shook his head and said inwardly, "It doesn't matter, the big deal is that I will directly upgrade to 3 stars, maybe it is Eternal Kaleidoscope." Eternal Kaleidoscope writing wheel eye, vision will not decline. The word, eternal, is the meaning of eternal light. Compared to this, I can feel Tsukiyomi in the left eye and Amaterasu in the right eye, but how about Susanoo? Chinyang frowned slightly. He didn't feel the relevant information of Susanangu. "Do you want me to exercise my pupil power and learn it?" In addition to Susanoo, there are other pupil techniques in the kaleidoscope shaker, and he seems to need to explore them one by one. Just thinking about it, suddenly, Uchiha Itachi split into 2, and Chinyang's body came out. Can you be separated during the forced transformation period? Chinyang thought in surprise, and then tried to take it back. However, the 7th transformation Uchiha Itachi did not respond, and it seemed that during the forced transformation period, the transformation could not be charged at will. Looks like it will take 7 days to get it back. Shaking his head, Chinyang sat down with his body cross-legged, while he was distractedly controlling Uchiha Itachi. In addition to the kaleidoscope Sharingan, this transformation also has ninjutsu fire done. Chinyang continued to explore new abilities. 2 days later. The first half of the Great Route, a barren island in the waters near the corner of Devil's Big 3. This island is very small. It is a small black spot when viewed from a high altitude. The magnetic field of the island itself is very weak. If the recording pointer wants to point to this island, it cannot be found unless it is very close. This island used to have another name, but now it's called Island of the Dead. Thousands of meters above the island of the dead, a black dragon hovered down, and two young men stood on it. Qin Yang's heart is divided into three parts. A small part controls the sea dragon, most controls Uchiha Itachi. As for the main body, it is basically in a state of expressionless and motionless. Sengoyu's writing wheel eye is very amazing. Qin Yang saw 3 marine warships approaching slowly on the sea near the undead island. Has it been found? Qin Yang raised his eyebrows and narrowed his eyes. This time, he could see more clearly, and he could even see the sailors on the deck. Admiral Akainu. Sure enough, it was discovered. The island of the dead is too close to the marine headquarters. However, only 1 admiral and 3 warships are sent to encircle and suppress it. Is it a dream? Qin Yang Isho, looking at his own body. Without hesitation, he ordered in a low voice, "Get close to them, I'd like to see what they want to do." Roar. A dragon roar caused the ocean to churn. Above the sea below, Akainu stood on the bow of the boat, and the moment he heard the dragon's roar, he immediately looked up. It's a sea dragon. A rear admiral was startled and a little terrified. Sure enough, this is a fantasy stronghold, and the information is correct. Akainu looked grim as he watched the sea dragon swoop down and finally hovered a few dozen meters in front of them. Above the dragon head, he saw 2 unfamiliar faces. Akainu's pupils shrank, and he was shocked. Are 2 new members again? One of them was wearing a black robe with red clouds and a peculiar forehead guard. The other person, who is very similar to the human form of the sea dragon I saw in Sabayati Archipelago, wears a long sword around his waist. The sword Akainu knows, the dragon blood Guagong, one of the 12 supreme knives. However, sea dragon is at the feet of these 2 people. Obviously, this person is not the human form of sea dragon, although he looks almost exactly the same. Who are you 2? Akainu's eyes flickered and he said coldly. As soon as his voice fell, he saw the man in the black robe with red clouds jump down and jumped directly to the bow of the warship. Clatter. It landed lightly and happened to stand on the edge of the boat. I'm one of the dream members, Itachi Uchiha. Qin Yang looked at the mouth calmly and looked directly at the group of marines. Admiral Akainu, what are you doing here? Uchiha Itachi. Akainu frowned. This kind of name is relatively rare, but it's just a name, not worth looking into. He looked up at the other person. But seeing the other party standing on the dragon head, it seems that there is no intention to communicate with him at all, as if disdain. Who is he? Akainu asked. You talk too much. Qin Yang said lightly. I'm asking you, what are you doing here? Humph. According to information, there are undead infested here. What do you think I'm here for? Akainu snorted coldly, annoyed at this attitude of contempt for Marine. The Lich King is very likely here. He is not your traitor. What? You are here to kill him too. He sneered, although Sengoku judged that they were being tricked, but at this moment, it was just right to sneer at each other. Sorry for fooling you. Qin Yang was expressionless, didn't even bother to find an excuse, and said directly, the Lich King has never betrayed from the beginning. He attacked your deep-sea prison under the order of the captain, Emperor Qin. If it's all right, you go away. Quote. You. Hearing that, Akainu's face was ugly. He never imagined that the other party would dare to say so in front of him, and he didn't take Marine seriously. It seems that you are very unconvinced, just to give you a glimpse of hell. Qin Yang's eyes narrowed, and in an instant, the 3-hooked jade turned into a kaleidoscope, and the pupil power was directly conveyed to Akainu's body through his sight. Monthly reading. In an instant, the world changed. Akainu was shocked to find that he couldn't move, and the other party suddenly stood in front of him, and a sharp blade slowly pierced his chest. Wow! Akainu groaned, a tear-like pain passed through his body. Impossible. Physical attack. What happened to the physical attack? Qin Yang conjured another sword and stabbed Akainu's throat little by little. Do you think, fluid, is useful to face me? You are too arrogant. Akainu's heart was shaking, and his face was full of disbelief. He is Logia, The opponent is useless. Even hockey, he can actually assassinate his fluid. It's impossible.